Welcome to Midwest Paranormal Presents Paranormal Soup. I'm your host, Jason Bland, and tonight we will have guest Mike Anthony. He's the author of Love, Dad, How My Father Died, Then Told Me He Didn't. He was also featured in a series on Netflix called Surviving Death that I've watched a couple times. It's really, really good, especially when it comes, the topic. I think when I started this show, if there's one topic out of all the weirdness and the soup that I think we focused on the most and built this show upon is there a afterlife? Does consciousness survive death? I think that's the number one question. That's the number one thing I'm interested in. I am also, aliens, Bigfoot, the whole thing. Yeah, I love all the weirdness. But the number one thing that got me really into this is what's waiting for us on the other side. I think everyone would be interested in that, right? I don't know. I've dealt with that struggle all my years doing the paranormal. Always wondering why people are not more interested in what we're all going to end up at is dead. And do we continue on? We're going to talk about that tonight. And I would love to hear your stories. I think one of the most powerful, my favorite, not ghost stories, spirit stories, I guess, paranormal stories people tell me is about their loved ones coming to them after they passed and letting them know they're okay. I've had that experience, and I think it's one of the most powerful out of all the paranormal experiences. I'd love to hear your stories tonight. Our guest, Mike Anthony, will join us after our news segment, World Wide Web of Weird. Later, we do that, and then he'll come on after the commercial break, and then we'll open up the phone lines probably after the second commercial break and call in and share your experiences or ask questions of our guests. But let's go ahead and get rolling into the show. Welcome to another night of Paranormal Soup. As I said before, I'm your host, Jason Bland. Tonight's guest, Mike Anthony, should be joining us after the World Wide Web of Weird and after our first commercial break. We are missing Rob, and I know he's running behind, so he should be here, so I might have to run the World Wide Web of Weird. Let me get that all set up. Let's hope. He should be here in a second, I hope.
He's running late.
Okay, all right. All right, well, I think I got it up on my end. I can share it. You have some good videos on it. It's always better when he does them. So, hearing that lovely voice is my co-host, Jamie D. How you doing tonight, Jamie?
I'm doing well, thank you.
I'm excited to talk to this guest. Like I said, Surviving Death, if you haven't seen on Netflix, he's featured in that, several episodes, and his a story, but he's the author of Love, Dad, How My Father Died, Then Told Me He Didn't. Jamie, I know you've had your personal experiences, communication like that. To me, the most powerful thing, paranormal-wise, I think of all the stories I hear are the ones when a loved one passes away and communicates that they're fine on the other side. That's my favorite story I get from people. I love hearing it. You'd think it'd be the haunted house or the alien abduction. No, that's usually my favorite story to hear because those are the most powerful. They change people's lives, and that's our guest tonight. That totally changed his life, set him on a whole path. So we're going to talk to him. Hopefully. I haven't talked to him yet. I haven't met him. We didn't have a sound check. Hopefully he's here. According to his PR guy, he will be here, and I am stalling, trying to hope that maybe Rob will get here, but I don't think so. So I'm probably going to have to pull up the little share screen here, get that all set up. Hold on. I miss you, Rob. All right, share screen. Yes, we want to share that. For those listening on the Paranormal Radio app, we are a webcast. You can watch on Facebook and YouTube and Twitch now. We are live streaming, but listening on the Paranormal Radio app, if you want to, listen to me narrate the article as best as possible. We do have some videos tonight, a dinosaur, I think, and a UFO. So we got a lot to get to, so let's go ahead and roll into the World Wide Web of Weird. Tonight on the World Wide Web of Weird, I thought I'd start off with some more mad scientist stories. I think it was last week we had quite a bit from Elon Musk and Neuralink wanted to create a Jurassic Park. putting chips in monkeys' brains and letting them telepathically play video games. You know, well, the mad scientists are still up to it. It's not Elon Musk this time, but we got scientists create first part human, part monkey embryo. Yay, science, right? for those listening on the Paranormal Radio Network, again, we are a webcast. You can watch us on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitch, or if you want to listen to me narrate, I will try to do as best as possible, which I suck at it. But anyways, you guys are still listening for some reason. All right, let me get the share screen up here. I'm a little rusty at doing this without Rob, but I got it. Hold on. Here we go. Let me get the old computer working. All right, here we go. All right, new study. Researchers generate human monkey chimeric embryos are able to develop up to 20 days. And then they have to like execute them or something, like, 'cause you can't let them actually develop because we don't want to, create Planet of the Apes. Yeah, this will end well. Researchers have created the first ever, and this is from the Nerdist, the first ever human monkey embryo, which is really cool if you watch sci-fi movies and think science should destroy mankind. Don't I always say that? Like, try to tell these scientists in China, these science fiction movies are not a blueprint. They're actually a warning. Not to do these things, not to give you an idea. A new paper published at Cell, which we first came across at NPR, shows the results of a scientific breakthrough. An international team of researchers have created embryos that are part of human and part monkey. These interspecies chimera formations are made with the human pluripotent stem cells. Of course, that doesn't answer the most obvious question we have, like, why? No, seriously, why? And, of course, is that the plot to destroy mankind with an army of monkey-human hybrids? I mean, Planet of the Apes. I mean, seriously, a whole series of stuff out there, reasons why not to do this. We won't rule out the last one just yet. But the team says the otherwise terrifying work is a very good cause. It might constitute a promising strategy for various regenerative medicine applications, including generations of organs and tissues for transplants. And it's the same thing with like the chip in the monkey's brain. It's the same deal that could be used to help people. It could help blind people see. It could, it could do a lot of great things medically. But there's always there's the dark side and light side of these things. There's always a catch. There's always somebody can always use a tool and do something bad with it. These chimera embryos resulted from experiments with other species. Sheep and pig embryos and tissues injected with human stems failed to generate organs. When that didn't work, the team injected the human stem cells into marquet monkey embryos instead. That did the trick. Oh yeah, there we go. Because monkeys are much closer to people genetically. The researchers say the embryos, which allow them to study biological communications between, of course my thing's messed up here, between humans and animal cells, could one day help them work with other animal embryos. They write these results may help better understand early human development and primate evolution. I get the science behind it. Just don't actually grow the monkey hybrid human thing. Just listen to that. Can we not do that? First, there we go. All right.
It's just very disturbing. And I thought it came out that we were actually closer to some other animal and not the monkey.
I think we're close to a lot of different things, but I don't know. I mean, pigs, I thought actually they said we were pretty close to in DNA. I don't know. I'm not a geneticist. I don't like the idea of them playing,
It's like God. Frankenstein.
Yeah, that's exactly it. That didn't end well either. Mary Shelley was trying to warn us back then. Science. Satan. No, I'm joking. I love science. I love the mad scientist scene. I was known as a mad science. Oh, no. Can listen to close the app and try again. I don't need the sound. I just need the video. See, I need Rob. It won't play the video. This next one. Darn it. This is a good one. This is a Florida woman one, too. I don't need the sound of the video. It's telling me it won't play because it can't play the sound. I don't care about the sound. Come on now. All right, might have to skip the second article, or I'll read it, and you can go check it out for yourself. Or maybe I can take a screenshot of it in here and upload it right now. Maybe we'll do that, just so you can see what it looks like. But it won't let me play the video for some reason, because my soundboard, I don't know.
I'm trying to get an ET on Rob.
Darn it. Well, this story, I guess I'll read it. I hope maybe Rob will be here and we can play the video if he comes miraculously. But the story is, Florida woman thinks she saw a baby dinosaur running through her backyard. Of course, I had the video to kind of explain what I think it is. A Florida woman believes she saw a baby dinosaur scrambling through her backyard, and she caught the prehistoric sighting on a video. The report said this is NewYorkPost.com. So you can go to NewYorkPost.com.
Your share screen's still up.
Yeah, I know. I'm getting ready to let's get a preview of the next article because I don't know what else to put up because I can't get the dang video to work. Christina Ryan shared her home security footage with Fox 35 on Saturday after cameras captured a strange creature running through the Palm Coast property last week in the middle of the night. So go check this out. There's a video for it. I think it's a dog with some kind of coat thing on, and its leash is running behind it. But she thought she found a dinosaur, and I thought it was interesting since last week we were talking about them trying to make a Jurassic Park. And then a Florida woman finds a dinosaur running through her backyard. Nah, I doubt it.
Hey, this article looks familiar.
Did you guys cover this last Wednesday? Yeah, I fell asleep before World Wide Weird because I have to get up early, so I missed it. I wondered. All right. Police disarm UFO detector in New Jersey. A suspicious device allegedly used to track UFOs was reported to police in New Jersey State Park recently. The incident, which took place on April 9th, saw local authorities attend the scene of a peculiar device described as a UFO detector that had been discovered by a member of the public. Compromise of a cylindrical metal can be mounted onto some wood with a cable sticking out and pole-like extension mount on top. The strange object was found on Sawdust Pile Road and Tabernacle. Concerned that it could be some type of explosive device, officers called in a special bomb-sniffing dog unit to investigate the contraption for signs of dangerous substances. The device was carefully disarmed by New Jersey State Police personnel by unplugging the headphones wire from the block of wood and the soup can it was plugged into, the department wrote. Although humankind and the visitors of New Jersey State Park appreciate an extraterrestrial early warning device like this, we should not be finding them in our state parks. Please always be safe when around suspicious objects like this. Always notify the New Jersey State Police, Park Police, if a suspicious object is found at our state park. You know, it does look like it could be a bomb. I see exactly why it was called in.
I could see the bomb. I could see them doing that. But what then made them think it was an alien detector? Like,
someone must have told them, or maybe they found who built it and they said, oh yeah, I was trying to document, UFOs. I don't know. Or they looked up online, or somebody else snitched on them. So, oh yeah, that's a UFO detector. I've never heard of one like this, but obviously somebody's trying to use it in our state parks. Maybe they're trying to find out with all the missing people, like the missing.
And when you zoom in, there's something stuck to it that kind of reminds me of those doorbell sensors when you break them apart, like you can use in REM pods.
Yeah.
There was a debate about what was actually stuck to the top of it, but it was like a headphone wire, a soup can.
Yeah.
Whatever that is.
All right, let me go to the next article here. I'm hoping Rob's here by the second to last article. I might switch it up and then wait till hopefully he's here for the last one, because the last one's, everybody's talking about it, but I still want to play the footage too. All right, Article 4. We're going to get a lot of UFO stuff here now. Hold on. Pull up Article 4.
I almost went and counted Rob this time.
Oh, no.
He's having issues.
Oh, no. Okay. Well, I don't know if it'll let me play any videos, and I didn't realize it was doing this with a sound card thing. It's weird. Odds slashed on extraterrestrials. So hold on. Being terrestrial, odd slash on extraterrestrials being discovered this month after Pentagon report. With news that the Pentagon is taking the unexplained sightings of highly advanced aircraft or some unknown natural phenomenon very seriously, bookies Paddy Power have updated their odds. So the gambling people are getting involved again. All right, so the U.S. military has acknowledged that the UFOs, or they like to call them UAPs, are real phenomenon that is currently being investigated. In the wake of that shock, new bookies Paddy Power has drastically shortened the odds on meetings between humans and extraterrestrials in the current decade. They say the chances of an alien discovery this year have risen dramatically. They are offering odds as short as 20 to 1, in from 200 to 1 before the Pentagon announcement, while their presence could be confirmed before the month's end, 51 in from 500 to 1 just the day before that. They're assuming that the people from the stars come in peace, although you can get odds of 500 to 1 for an all-out war between humans and aliens to take place by the year of 2030. Like, okay, so if you bet, yeah, that's going to happen, I don't know if you're going to get paid out. I think other people are going to have priorities if that, there's, alien war with us in 2030. I think we're pretty screwed. I think we're pretty screwed anyways, but... All right, they're assuming that people from the start... Oh, yeah, wrong part of the article. There's always a chance that there could be a human agency behind the recent spate of UFO activity, though. And if that turns out to be the case, who is a more likely candidate than space-obsessed billionaire Elon Musk? Paddy Power offered odds of 51 that the future Emperor Mars steps forward to claim the ownership of the mysterious drones. No, it's not Elon Musk. The company is nevertheless offering odds of 7 to 1 that the existence of alien civilization is confirmed by 2030, and quite tempting 20 to 1 that they would get confirmation by the end of this year. I don't know about that. I don't know if I'd take those odds. If you fancy a long shot, you can place a 51 bet that the little green men show up by the end of April. Doom mongers can have 100 to 1 flutter on an interplanetary war breaking out by 2100. Again, they won't be around to pick that up, and if they were, who's going to pay them? Or from war risky bet, you can get 500 1 that mankind will engage in warfare with aliens by 2030. I mean, you can make. I mean, if you end up being right, I mean, maybe you get some money, and spend it really quickly. While most high street bookies will be burned or irradiated shells in the wake of an interplanetary conflict, the internet was originally designed to survive nuclear war, so there's a chance you could still collect your winnings online, right? Spokesperson Patty Power told the Daily Star, "We're just starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel and hoping life will soon return to normal, so that last thing we need now is fear of an alien invasion." But he added, as long as aliens are entering the country, adhere to the strict quarantine protocols, I'm sure we'll be fine. Yeah, well, it didn't work out in War of the Worlds. Aliens got sick and died. It might help us. We win by COVID. That's what it's here for, kill the aliens, right? Okay. Well, let's move on. Hold on. Let's see. Article 5. You know me and my fascination with the moon, so I'm not going to read the whole article. This is from The Sun. Let me just do a double check to see, just in case. Maybe I got lucky. Rob showed up. And no. Okay. Hold on. I got to keep forgetting I can't do that. Okay. Hunt for alien life should focus on moon, where aliens may have left spacecraft and other artifacts, scientists claim. Let's see, this is from the sun.co.uk. U.S. physicists have developed a new version of an alien life hunting equation and thinks we should be looking for artifacts and spacecraft designed by extraterrestrials. James Bedford paper in the journal Astrobiology theorizes that aliens could have left artifacts behind on the moon and other rocky bodies near Earth. He created a version of the Drake equation, which is a scientific formula that estimates the number of active and communicating alien civilizations in our Milky Way galaxy. Bedford's version estimates the number of artifacts and probes that extraterrestrials could be leaving behind. The physicists also argue that the alien civilizations may be dead, but their artifacts may still be able to communicate with us. He also theorized that aliens might think leaving artifacts in space is a more cost-effective contact strategy than broadcasting signals. We have science projects on Earth that are listening for strange signals, but we don't yet have a team that's looking for evidence of aliens that have been to the moon. Well, I think they did find evidence. We're just not hearing about it. Benford states in his paper, I propose a version of the Drake equation include searching for alien artifacts which may be located on the moon's Earth Trojans or Earth co-orbital objects. I mean, there's also the Phobos moon on Mars. There's some strange objects on. And of course, plenty of stuff people have seen that it's on Mars, or on Mars and on the moon. That could be alien artifacts. So why aren't we looking? All right, can't open this file. See, that's number 6. That's not going to work. I need Rob. It's not going to play this video unless I can find it on YouTube or something. It's the only thing I can think of. Nope, there's Rob. To the rescue. Hopefully you can get your share screen to work for this next one. Unmute, hopefully. It's like the biggest news in UFO. There we go. All right, we're on we're going to go to number 6. Because it should be a video. Hopefully this works. We don't need sound, just the video. That's it. Yes. I can't get to work on my end, Rob. Thank God here. Okay, so everybody's talking about this. This is the big one. Jeremy Corbell. I would love to have Jeremy on the show. I have a Facebook friend. I've been too scared to ask him to come on the show because I love his Bob Lazar documentary, except for the narrator, on that. But I love it. He's got Skinwalker documentary. It's awesome. I'd love to have Jeremy Corbell on. And this footage he got, it's out there. Everybody's talking about. I got this from Unexplained Mysteries just because I got short articles. Pentagon, pyramid UFO footage, authentic. Sourced by filmmaker Jeremy Corbell and reported by George Knapp. The newly unearthed evidence includes images and video footage of a pyramid-shaped object flying through the night sky. Now the Pentagon has come forward to confirm that these UAPs are in fact authentic and they were captured by the U.S. Navy. I can confirm that the reference photos and videos were taken by Navy personnel, said Pentagon spokesman Susan Go in a statement that has since been widely distributed by the media. The UAPTF has included these incidents in their ongoing examinations. As we have said before, to maintain operation security and avoid disclosing information that may be used to potential adversaries, DoD does not discuss publicly the details of either the observations or explanations of reported incursions to our training ranges or designated airspace, including those incursions initially designated as UAP. According to Corbell and Knapp, these images were presented during a series of classified intelligence briefings back in May 2020. It also is believed that they were captured from the U.S. Russell off the coast of San Diego in 2019. Exactly what these strange pyramid-shaped objects are, however, continues to remain a mystery. And I've heard a lot of people say, if this isn't ours, if it is an alien, then we're in big trouble, because if it's China or Russia, our relations aren't the greatest. And, we don't want them to have this technology. There's no way this is not anybody on Earth.
Looks
so, yeah. Good. Doesn't it? Now, in this video, when you watch it, and my share screen version of it, go to find Jeremy Corbell's original video that he posted, and it's all over the place. I'm sure a lot of people that watch the show have seen it. I've slowed it down and zoomed in on it. It's really crappy there. If you go back to the beginning of the original footage, when you see it, you actually see another one flying up behind it above. It's not just one there. And man, when this thing, whatever it's flashing in the IR, is really bright. When it gets really bright in the sky. Go ahead and play this again. It would have to be huge, too.
Yeah.
They call it pyramid shape. I think triangle shape, like what Terry Lovelace said, has seen, an Incident at Devil's Den. Speaking of, he'll be on next Sunday. Nice. Well, Terry on. I was on Devil's Den, his podcast that he's doing, and had a lot of fun doing that show. And when I saw this footage, I thought of Terry Lovelace. I mean, that's a total triangle UFO. They call it pyramid, but potato.
Yeah, it's big, whatever it is.
And go back to the original footage. I want to see if we can see that again, because I want to see if you notice. I don't know, my footage is shared screen, so it's crap. But when you see it, I don't know if people notice, there is something that flies up above it that's the same shape, but it's like there's another one up there. See it? I don't know if you can see it.
I've noticed that with those type of evidence too. When you see that, there always seems to be other things following or around.
Yeah, see it right there.
Yeah.
To the left of it there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there's another one flying right up there. Two of these big things hovering above one of our battleships. You think this is why Senator Mark Rubio, and these other senators that saw this in May, we're all like, oh, we want to know what's going on. We want to report. And they've snuck that into that COVID relief bill under the Trump administration. Why they want these answers? Because they saw this. They saw videos like this of these things. I mean, there's credible ones. There's ones that fly underwater. You see it. There's no denying it. There is no more denying it. The disclosure is there. Okay, if the military admits this real, come on, people. The media's are, the news media. I mean, Tucker Carlson's on Fox News talking about it, and you have some, but nobody's minds are blown by it. It's not like credible to anybody. Why? We've been desensitized. See how they brainwashed us? They got us up here, and they're finally giving us the goods, and nobody gives a crap. I mean, they do, but not really, because of COVID and everything else going on.
Too. They didn't want people to freak out like War of the Worlds and go jumping out of buildings and.
But you have to be concerned. You don't know what this is. It's stalking. What was the article I shared last week or a week before or so, where I talked about it's not just our ships. These things are trailing all these other countries' ships.
Oh yeah.
Are reporting the same thing. Other countries, other militaries are having the same issue. And it seems to be more frequent.
The other day too.
Yeah. It seems to be more frequent. All right, we better get the last one. The last one, my wife kind of poo-pooed this. She's like, "Who cares about the royals?" I don't. But I wanted to point this out because everybody talked about, Prince Philip dying. And then, I don't know. I got time to read this. Among the many interests he pursued, Prince Philip, throughout his long life, the Duke of Edinburgh was reportedly fascinated by the topic of UFOs and kept himself appraised of all the latest research and developments. He allegedly first became interested after his uncle, Lord Mountbatten, wrote an official report about a strange object that landed in his estate in Romsey, Hampshire, back in 1955. You should go look that up. It is really interesting what his uncle saw. In it, he described witnessing a saucer-shaped craft which hovered just above the ground before a strange man wearing overalls and a helmet descended to the ground. He was then knocked off his bike and pinned to the floor by an invisible force. It's really crazy. It would get my interest. What I'm going to say, and I would, another person I'd love to have on the show is David Icke. I'd love to talk to him. But according to David Icke, they're all reptilian aliens, right? Dimensional shape-shifting reptilian aliens. And I'm not trying to promote that. I actually own David Icke books. I read it. I listen to all points of views. But my point is, if he was a reptilian alien, why would he even be interested? He'd know exactly what they are. He wouldn't have any fascination. Yeah, I can give him a call. You know, I'm not trying to be facetious here. I'm just saying, and I would love to, bring David Icke on. I'd love to debate him. I'd love to. I think he's super smart, all this stuff. But the reptilian aliens, why would he, have a big fascination about UFOs? You think he'd have all those answers, right?
Get
I'm just
the
saying.
chopper.
Oh yeah.
Predators,
I'm just saying. I think it's really interesting when you do find out these celebrities or people in government have a real fascination with UFOs, but you don't find out until after they die, and we can't talk to them about it.
Yeah.
See, the government's admitting it. There's UFOs. We can all talk about it now. You're not crazy. I've been doing it for years and not giving a crap what anybody thought about me.
Yeah.
I said, you think I'm crazy? Okay, whatever. I seen a big one. I seen a UFO. I believe her. I believe. Yeah. So,
Mr. Bland, please step out of the house.
That's it for the World Wide Web of Weird. I'm not trying to knock on David Icke. Not at all. I just say it's a difference of opinion. He believes they're reptilian, child-eating lizards. I believe they're just people, really rich with a lot of issues. But that's it. All right. After the commercial break, we're going to be back with our guest, Mike Anthony, author of Love, Dad, How My Father Died, Then Told Me He Didn't. He was also featured in Surviving Death. It's a Netflix series. I've watched it several times. It's really, really, really good. I highly recommend you see it. Like I said, one of my biggest interests and the focus of the show is does consciousness survive after this life? We all have an invested interest in this. We all should care. We're all going to end up there. There's one guarantee, death and taxes, right? Well, for some people. All right, guys, we'll be right back after a short commercial break.
Join us every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time for Weird Wednesday, the live stream, with your hosts Jamie, the Living Dead Girl, and Rob, the Phantom, where we'll talk about all things paranormal, including zodiac, astrology, tarot card and oracle card readings, live ghost boxing and spirit communication, where we'll do Voices from Beyond, the Cold Case Files. So we hope you join us live on Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time. We hope to see you there. Bye-bye.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Of the second kind, physical evidence of a UFO. Close encounters of the third kind, contact. From Steven Spielberg, the director of Jaws, comes one of the most ambitious and unusual films ever made. And what you will see has never been seen before. It's a cosmic mystery crossing what many scientists believe will be the next threshold of human experience. It's called Close Encounters of the Third Kind. It begins in an Indiana town and leads to one inescapable conclusion. We are not alone. Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Certificate A. now showing at the Odeon, Leicester Square.
The night is alive. Join us and take a walk on the weird side when you tune in to The Kingdom of Nye, hosted by Heather Wade, the finest in late night talk. Listen live free weeknights starting at 9 p.m. Pacific time at thekingdomofnye.com, talkstreamlive.com, and the Paranormal Radio app. Wanna take a ride?
The international chart-topping Haunted Horror of Haverfordwest has been described as terrifyingly real, a must-read, shocking and chilling brilliance, genuinely worrying, utterly frightening. Don't read before bed. Described as one of the spookiest writers out there, best-selling author G.L. Davies presents Haunted Horror of Haverfordwest, the true paranormal account that is shocking the world. Dare you enter? Dare you read? Haunted Horror of Haverfordwest is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, and wherever books are sold. Pray you never have to live there.
Do you like rock and roll? Do you enjoy a good story? Wish You Were Here, A Rock Fantasy, is a book inspired by Badfinger. It will not only entertain you, but intrigue you. What is it about? Well, Thomas is searching for his bandmate and friend in heaven, and in spirit has helped pen this story. He meets an old friend and famous new ones on his afterlife voyage. Midwest Book Review said, Wish You Were Here, A Rock Fantasy, is a book inspired by Badfinger. It's a quirky story by Joyce S. Isaacson and is unique, original, and deftly crafted metaphysical novel that showcases the author's genuine flair for character and narrative-driven entertainment that is simply riveting from first page to last. Wish You Were Here, A Rock Fantasy is now available on pennantpublication.com, amazon.com in paperback and hardcover, and also on Kindle Unlimited. So check it out now. Wish You Were Here, A Rock Fantasy.
Switch to DCS ranging.
240, nominal to profile.
We're in the pipe. 5 by
Tonight on Paranormal Soup, our guest is Mike Anthony. He's the author of Love, Dad, How My Father Died, Then Told Me He Didn't. Mike Anthony has been a professional actor and a not-professional bartender. It was in the role of Lee Ladder that he was lucky enough to experience from an up-close perspective the ride that Hamilton, America's musical, took as it rocketed into Broadway history. His first book, Life at Hamilton, chronicles his extraordinary time there. Beyond his life in theater, Mike's journey took him an unexpected turn when his dad passed, leading him down a remarkable path of discovery. He now spends a good portion of his time exploring evidence of suggestive of the survival of consciousness beyond the demise of the physical body. A part of Mike's story will be told in a documentary series called Surviving Death. It is on Netflix. I watched it before I knew I was going to have Mike as a guest. I had started watching it, and then I went back and watched it again before this. It's really good. You know me. I watch any of the stuff on this subject. I love the TV shows. His book, I love how he starts off his book. He talks about one of my favorite shows is The Good Place. You know, I bring up that show. I love the aspect of what is on the other side. What is this question? And I do want you guys to join this conversation. After our next commercial break, I will open the phone lines. You can call in. I'd love to hear your own experiences. What made you a believer in the afterlife? Or what makes you, maybe you're a skeptic. I doubt I have skeptics here. What did make you a believer, if you are, that life goes on after this time? That's our discussion night. What is waiting for us on the other side? Is there an afterlife? You know, what is it? The most powerful conversations I've had with people, the ones when they tell me when a loved one, like Mike's dad, comes across to them and gives them a sign, lets them know they're alive. I've had that experience. It's one of the most powerful all the weirdness I've had in my life, the most powerful is my grandmother came through to me through a mirror. I could see her. This is one of my favorite tops tonight, so I'm so honored to have Mike on. So let's go ahead and get to our guest. All right, let's see. Let's make sure we got him here to the stream. How you doing tonight, Mike?
Hey, guys. I'm well. How are you?
Doing really good. It's an honor to have you on the show, and nice to meet you. We got my co-host here with me is Jamie and Rob. Meet Mike. It's nice to have you on.
It's nice to meet you.
That's so nice to be here, guys. I have to admit that I have not had a chance to watch your show before, but when I put the headset on, the first thing I heard was a child eating reptilian aliens, and I thought, I have found my people.
I'm just saying, like, if Prince Philip is a reptilian, why would he have an interest in UFOs? I'm just curious.
Makes total sense. That yes.
I think he would know. I think he'd be getting rides on UFOs. He'd probably have his own UFO. But anyways, off topic. We want to talk about your book. I haven't finished it, but I have been reading it. Your book, Love, Dad, How My Father Died Then Told Me He Didn't. And I've also a fan of Surviving Death. I didn't even associate. I mean, I seen you in it. Like I got into the 4th episode. And then something came up, and I had not got to watch it, but I loved it. I'm like, oh, I have to continue this. I think it was like, oh, I need to watch this with my wife. And then I found out she started watching it without me. So then I rewatched it all, and I'm like, yeah, this is going to be a really great guest. Start reading the book, and I am so honored to have you on the show to talk about probably the favorite subject out of all of them is life after death. Do we go on?
Yeah, man. I mean, as you said, it's a question that affects every single human being on the planet, right? There's no one.
You say it in the show. I think it's your voice that comes in. It says that every person has an vested interest in this or something along those lines.
Yeah.
And like, that's what I've been saying for years. Like 100%. For years, like I'm, you didn't have your awakening till later in life. For me, I've been a weird kid. I have a lot of paranormal experiences. So I've been a believer,
Yeah. Well,
something's out there.
I mean, I have my own amount of weirdness in that when I was in high school, I was 14 years old and I co-founded the Phenomenology Club in high school. And so as you can imagine, I was a very popular high school kid as the co-founder of the Phenomenology Club. And, I had this amazing science teacher who once a week, he reserved time to let us talk about everything paranormal. UFOs.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, he really, I mean, how many high schools have something like that? UFOs, ghosts, not many. And, so I've always been interested in it, this topic, anything paranormal, really.
Yeah.
At the same time, I've always loved science. And my plan before I became an actor, and my initial plan was to be a high school science teacher. And the rational part of my brain was thinking, well, surely if there's any real evidence that there are UFOs, if there's any real evidence that life might go on after death, if there's any hardcore, actual, verifiable evidence that there are people walking around this planet who have an ability to somehow communicate with people who are no longer in bodies, surely some scientist would have told me about this by now, and I would have learned about it. You know what I mean? I mean, that was my naive thought at the time.
No, that's not naive. That you would think it'd be logical. It'd be the area they'd want to go to. That's the ultimate question, the undiscovered country. But no.
Yeah, I mean, especially given how important this is, again, to everyone. I mean, it's of paramount importance. It's a profound question. What happens after we die? What are we? So to me, now that I've learned, after my own personal experiences that have proven to me beyond the shadow of a doubt that we are much more than our bodies. I then looked into all of the actual evidence that is out there. I mean, some brilliant scientists over the past 120, 150 years have investigated particularly mediumship, among other paranormal things. And the evidence, in my opinion, is ridiculously solid. And I think it's sort of criminal in a way that this stuff has not been taught more widely, in more of a mainstream way.
No, not only that, academia shuts it down.
Completely.
You're not a tenured professor, and you start getting into this stuff. Bye-bye. You're gone.
that was a real surprise to me. I don't know why it was such a surprise, but it was. The evidence, for instance, for reincarnation, right? These children who have memories that are not their own. That they're having, some of them many details. They're recalling of a previous life. Some of them are begging to see their parents, their old mommy, And not only that, they say my mom's name was Barbara. We had a dog named Buster. My sister's name was Julie. We lived on Rock Street or whatever. This level of detail, so much so that in many cases now, we've been able to track down who that previous personality is. And sure enough, the details match up. They've been doing this research at the University of Virginia now for over 50 years. The Division of Perceptual Studies, started by a brilliant scientist named Dr. Ian Stevenson. And they conclude. I went down to interview Dr. Tucker, who now heads up the division, and I asked him this. I'm like, if this evidence is so stark and so concrete, why isn't this in the mainstream? I mean, what you guys have uncovered here, to my eyes, right, to my layman's eyes, is profoundly important. And
to change everything, right?
Everything. It changes everything. I mean, the evidence is so strong. It's so strong that JAMA, the Journal of the American Medical Association, one of the most respected peer-reviewed scientific journals in the whole world, when the book editor for JAMA read one of Dr. Stevenson's books, his conclusion, the book editor for JAMA, was that reincarnation is the most likely explanation. I mean, in my mind, the evidence is stronger than the connection we see between saturated fat and heart disease. I mean, the evidence is as strong, or that smoking is bad for us. I mean, that's
you could win a court case on it.
No doubt about it. Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. In a court of law. I mean, I asked him at the end of the interview, bottom line, straight up, is reincarnation something that actually happens in your mind? And he said, yes, I think at this point we can clearly say the evidence shows that some children have memories that are not their own memories. So, I mean, that's kind of that. Or I mean, that alone shatters the current scientific materialist paradigm.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a Western versus Eastern thing of religion philosophy. I mean, look at, did you ever see the movie with Robin Williams, What Dreams May Come?
I did, many years ago, but I did. Yeah.
The original Western edit of that film has a whole different ending than the edit they showed to like Eastern China and India. And I love the edit for the India Eastern version, because in it there's a whole reincarnation thing at the end. They get reborn. It's like a whole thing.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah.
I mean,
they didn't do that here.
Yeah, I mean, religion is can be a wall that keeps some information from getting disseminated. At least, people put blocks up in their own brains. It's not all nefarious people keeping information from us. A lot of people keep the information from themselves because they just don't want to have it. Because for some people, it just kind of upends their sense of things. It's comforting to feel like we have a sense of things,
I've had guests on here that, they're strict Christian. I have all kinds of views on this show. And to them, it's not, you're not being reincarnated. They're ghosts. They're communicating with you, or spirits, or it's the devil or the demons. You're being deceived. And that's their point of view. And they're, respect that.
They're entitled to that point of view. Absolutely. Yeah. But I mean, if we want to look logically as we can at this, I mean, there were gospels not included in the Bible, right? The Bible includes Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, 4 out of now hundreds, if you're in, especially with the Gnostic gospels that were discovered. And in some of the gospels, reincarnation is talked about, and that stuff was brushed out when it came time to have the decide on the Bible. The Emperor Constantine, I think it was, had basically a council, and they decided.
Council in East, yeah.
Yes. So so reincarnation was in some of these things. It's been scrubbed out of the history. So yeah.
I have plenty of friends and guests like Paul Anthony Willis, plug there for Paul, who's a Christian, believes in reincarnation. I mean, I think it's evolving. I think people are getting more. I mean, it depends. Personal experience. I had a friend who grew up in a total regular Christian family, and we talk about these things. My mom's a Buddhist, and I'd be like, well, I'm a believer in reincarnation. This is before I even had I had two very vivid dreams that I totally believe were past lives. I mean, they were just too real, too intense, and just too off the wall. to be anything else, in my opinion. But before I even had those, I would get in arguments with my friend when we were teenagers about this, and he'd be like, well, if you lose your memories, then you're not you. I said, okay, so if I knock you out, give you amnesia, you're no longer Chris. He's gone forever, you know? And he's like, oh, okay, I guess that's a point. I go, it is. But he's like, it's still not real. I'm like, you know, but, you know, it depends on people's personal experiences. In the Western society, we just are, most people, not myself, I'm weird. Most people are just, it's not part of the equation. It's not, you know, there's too many different religions here. They have no part of it.
Yeah.
And, so, and look how they do it with the media, how they change the story of what dreams may come to fit our narrative, you know, and what they did to fit the narrative over in, you know, Eastern countries.
Yeah, you know, I mean, what we think of as reality is created really easily. It can be created really easily. You know, if you have someone speaking with enough authority, it doesn't take much before, no matter what they say, gets into your subconscious, and you think, well, that woman sounded like she really knew what she was talking about, and so whatever it was becomes sort of your background reality, and that can happen. I think a lot more easily than we're aware of. So, I mean, if you're a child and you're inoculate, you know, you grow up in a family that tells you that the Christian faith or any particular faith is the answer, that's the truth. It can be hard to sort of be able to see beyond that, I think.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, in my household, when I grew up as a kid, my parents left me to discover what I want to believe, you know, like I was lucky to grow up in a household that's very open. My mom was a Buddhist. My dad's very scientific, you know, very scientific, you know, he's into quantum theory, and we'd be talking about all these things, you know, like that. So I was lucky to have an openness, but I have plenty of friends, plenty of people I know that did not end up so lucky. And, you know, and some are estranged from their family because they've gone on their own way. There's changes happening in Western society where the more of these things are becoming open, more of them are becoming acceptable in thought. It'll be interesting to see where we go in the next 10, 20 years as a society if we do start to change how we react to these things like reincarnation. Yeah,
I mean, I think just to go back to UFOs for a moment, I think that's going
to a whole other rabbit hole, but yes,
whole other rabbit hole. But I think it's going to affect all of this stuff because once one wall is broken down, I think it's less hard to break down the remaining walls. And you know, for a lot of people on this planet, the idea of UFOs is still sort of way out there and not something they think about. You know, I just heard a newscaster recently. They were talking about the new Jeremy Corbell footage.
Yeah, so we were showing.
Yeah. Oh, were you? Yeah. And she said, you know, nope. She like put her hands up. She's like, I don't want to hear it. I just want to. I heard that. I want to go back to my blissful.
That.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that.
I think there's more people out there. I think there's a lot of people out there like that because once we open,
it drives me nuts.
Me too.
It drives me nuts.
Me too. I'm the kind of person, I suspect, like you, that wants to know what the answer is, whatever it is. You know, I want to know the truth. But like we were saying before, it can be really comforting it can be blissful. That newscaster
ignorance is
said,
bliss.
Yes. Because at least if you're taught as a child, okay, we're Christian. These are the rules. They're all written out nicely for you here in this Bible. If you follow these rules, you're going to go to paradise and everything's going to be great. It's like that's very sweet and comforting and easy in a sense. If you know what the rules are and you think, okay, I just have to follow this, all will be well. It's a lot. It takes an amount of courage, I think, to sort of try to put that aside for a moment and ask your own questions and come up with your own answers. You know, that takes some bravery.
And see, that's just how I was raised. That's just how I am. It's ingrained in me. I'm wired to question everything. And I love that about you in the show. When your family gets I want to get into the story. I want to give the whole book away. I know I want people to get your book, Love, Dad. But the show, when your family gets a reading from I think it was a trans medium.
Yeah, trans medium.
And it was really good, and everybody's like, yeah, but you're like, wait, but wait a second. Did you post this was this online? Could they look this up? You start asking all the questions. See, and this is somebody who's a believer that the ability is real, because I've had my own experiences, own psychic things. I knew a guy's, I've said this on the show, I know, sorry, audience, I'll repeat this, but Mike doesn't know me. I held a photo of a person who was deceased, and not trying, I don't know where, said their first name, And then when my friends asked me to try, like, how do you know that? What's their last name then? A little voice in my head told me their last name. And I knew that they were an alcoholic. I knew that they had World War II member. I knew all this stuff.
So you were doing the mediumship.
Yeah, out of nowhere. Wow. And I remember my instructor, and I was trained as a paranormal investigator, said, people have these experiences, but it doesn't mean you're John Edwards. I'm like, I gotcha. Don't want to ever do that again. It was really weird. Right. But I am interested in discovering it. Having that experience made it real for me. But for so many people, there's always the question, wait, how did they know? Maybe they could have looked it up. And that's good questions. There are good questions that you should ask those questions, because even me, who's had these experiences, knows it's real. I will still ask that I have mediums on the show all the time. I still have that thought in my mind. Are they looking stuff up online? How do we know?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I think it's important to always maintain that frame of mind, right? I think it's important to be open-minded, but also skeptical, simply meaning that we require evidence before we accept what it is that we're being told. That's all that I mean. And I think there's a big difference between that and someone who is a debunker, right? I write in the book a bit about there are some hardcore debunkers out there. They spend their lives just trying to poke holes in these things, and like they a priori have decided that this stuff is impossible.
That's the problem with the debunker premise, is they've already set up there's no other premise but that this is fake, and I'm going to show you how. There's no other premise but that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And as far as mediumship goes, it's a subject that the history of mediumship is fraught with people who have faked it, in the past. And even just recently, the New York Times, there was a sting operation with a medium, and it was pretty clear that this person was looking stuff up on Facebook. So, it's important to always stay alert. But all of that said, it's now clear to me, just because people have faked this in the past, or that there are people out there who fake it, it does not mean that everyone who does it is faking it, which is what the skeptics or the debunkers seem to think.
Penn and Teller that you talk about.
Oh, man. Hardcore.
And I love Penn and Teller. I love Penn and Teller, but I completely disagree with them. Like, I think they're awesome. I love Penn and Teller. I love their show.
Love them.
But I completely think they're assholes. Sorry, excuse my French. About it, I'm like, seriously, guys.
It was really bothersome to me because, Penn is a really smart guy. He's a really smart guy, and there are a lot of brilliant people out there who say that this stuff is impossible. What I have written about in this book, and it bothered me for the longest time because I'm a guy of average intelligence, right? So what is it that I'm missing? What do these super smart dudes know that I don't know? And then I had an experience that completely changed my sense of reality in a objective, physical way. I saw something which I write about in the book while I was sitting beside Leslie Kean, who's a New York Times journalist. She's the woman who broke the Pentagon UFO story. She's become a good friend of mine, and she has written herself about what happened here. So I promise you this is true. Yeah. And because I had that experience, I now know that no matter how smart somebody is, no matter how intelligent Penn Jillette is, if he tells me that there is absolutely no such thing as anything paranormal, which is his blanket statement, I know he's wrong about that. That, he's just wrong.
Yeah. See, for me, that was ingrained in me at a very young age. 5 years old, with a witness. My cousin, both saw a green floating head come through, floating through a room.
What?
At us. I've had all kinds of crazy stuff. Go back, check the archive. You'll hear all my stories.
I
tell
will.
All the time. They're sick of it. The audience is sick of hearing it. Well, I always say that green floating head at an age of 5 ingrained in me that anything's possible. So when people would tell me as a kid that stuff happened, I was like, I can believe you. I thought Ghostbusters could be real because I saw it. At 5 years old, it scars you.
I'll
it
bet,
makes anything possible. But I understand. It took me years to understand that. That's why people don't have these kind of experiences all the time. So it's hard for them to accept that it's real. I get that. I have to set myself back and understand their perspective.
Absolutely understand. But what always never made sense to me is that there is so much anecdotal evidence, like the story that you just told. At some point, the weight of evidence should start to shift. We use witness testimony in the court of law all the time to convict people of crimes. And yet, again, people like Penn Jillette and these
They're saying you're a
debunkers,
liar.
a liar, or you're an idiot, or what? Yeah, exactly. And not just me, but hundreds of thousands of people who have had these.
All your liars. You're all liars. That's what they're trying to say. I mean, I have a friend of my wife. He's very skeptical, super skeptical, like agnostic, totally skeptical as hell. He straight up called me a liar when I'm telling him stuff that's happened to me, because he's like, I don't believe you're into that paranormal stuff. And I'm like, yeah. And then he's like, oh, I don't believe it. And I tell him, like, this happened to me. You're a liar.
Yeah.
It makes sense. Wow. Okay.
And it doesn't make any sense to me. And I mean, there have been scientists of renown who have looked into physical mediumship, for instance. A guy named Charles Richet won the Nobel Prize in physiology, okay? The Nobel Prize in how the human body works. I mean, this guy was brilliant and so insightful that his brain was able to do things, to look around corners and figure stuff out in a way that very few brains on the planet can do, right? He had like a special genius about him. And yet, when he said that ectoplasm is a real thing, which is a substance that I thought was written by Harold Ramis in Ghostbusters. I thought that's where the term came from. Turns out it was coined by this guy, Charles Richet. It's this substance, as crazy as this is going to sound, maybe not to your audience, but maybe to the average person, that the spirit world it can extract from a human body and then use to physically materialize in the room. So the other scientists of the day and since then have looked at Charles Richet and said, yes, he was brilliant when it came to physiology. But when it came to this particular thing, he obviously was clearly mistaken somehow. And that doesn't make logical sense, that people can be so insightful as to change the world. Some of these scientists, like one of them created the vacuum tube that was used in the first radio. I mean, it's stuff that takes real brilliance, real genuine insight and inspiration almost to come up with these new ideas that change the way our future goes, right? But in this particular area of study, we have to conclude that their thinking was somehow
they're just wrong.
They were just faulty in that one particular. That doesn't
all that
make
other
sense.
stuff right, but yeah.
Yeah.
Edson, he was trying to make a spirit communication device with a beam of light. And he got shot down by the people who were funding him when they found out.
Yeah.
And said, yeah, we don't want any association with it. We're good Christian people.
That's right.
And,
that's right.
So he shut it down. But, somebody as brilliant as him, was interested in this, that he thought there was life after death. I mean, come on. I don't know what your feeling is of this. I've always felt that a big part of it, the reason why people don't want to look at it, people don't want to believe it, it's just easier to not look at it because of the fear.
I agree.
Of what's on the other side. They don't want to look at it. Just like UFOs. It's just it's the fear of it.
I agree with you. I think that is a huge part of why there's still the stigma about all of this stuff and why it's not out there in the mainstream. Because again, to me, the evidence, when I really looked into this stuff, the evidence is so strong for what Dr. Julie Beischel, she's a scientist out of the University of Arizona, one of the few brave scientists working today, actually investigating mediumship in a laboratory setting, doing quintuple blind studies with mediums, which it basically means they are ruling out cheating as a possibility. And the results are crystal clear to Dr. Beischel. The same statistics, the same math that has helped us land a probe on Mars is telling Dr. Beischel that mediumship is a real phenomenon, that some people have an ability to communicate in some way with some field of information. We won't call it dead people because we can't say that with certainty, but we can say with certainty that they're getting information in a way we can't understand. She calls it anomalous information reception. So the same statistics that have helped us build this amazing world and made this computer, the same math that did all of that, is telling her that human brains are able to do stuff that we cannot yet explain.
That it's not only that, is you guys, I think the series Surviving Death really starts out with a lot of the near-death experiences.
Yeah,
I mean,
man.
The idea that all these experiences are people out of their body, looking down at their body. They're separate. That means their conscious is not there. They can see outside their body.
Yeah,
just like remote viewing. These all indicate that we are not just in our body, that we are something else.
Yeah, and in the Netflix series, we sort of just scratch the surface of a lot of this stuff. It's sort of an introductory series for people who may not have a lot of awareness of all of this stuff. The near death.
I loved it though.
Yeah,
I
it's
don't
great.
need an introduction, but I still loved it.
Yeah, I think it's in general it's great, but there's only so much time for each category, and the near death thing alone could be a 6-hour documentary series.
Yes.
The best evidence, which we don't really get to touch on a whole lot in the series, people have what are known as veridical NDEs, where something happens when they're out of body that can be verified later, right? This stuff is astounding, and this line of evidence alone shatters. It should be it. To at least shatter the materialist paradigm, because we have at this point now, by the way, we have thousands of people who have had near death, probably hundreds of thousands.
Million, I think.
Probably. I
mean, really.
There's a great, there's the International Association for Near-Death Studies, IANS.com, which people can go and read people's firsthand accounts of near-death experiences. And, because of modern resuscitation, we're getting better and better at bringing people back all the time. So I can only imagine that this is going to continue to
But think about how many people don't talk about it.
Oh, many don't.
Right.
Many.
That's why I say a million. I mean, like there could be a ton that never tell their story.
Oh, people who have actually had it, I totally agree with you. I'm sure millions have had it, and I think that probably a lot of our religious stuff might come from near-death experiences, seeds of truth that they got, and then they were back in their brain after coming back.
Or ancient aliens, but...
Or that lizard eating...
a little both.
Baby eating lizard people possibly too. Yes. But in those veridical cases, we'll have people who come out of their body, they see what's going on, they're in the living room. They're in the OR, the operating room. Then they'll, in some cases, go down the hall, right, to the waiting room and overhear a conversation their family's having, and then they'll be able to report verbatim the words that were said. We have so many cases like that. One line of evidence that I am fascinated by are people who have had near-death experiences who are blind, and in many cases, people who are blind from birth. So in some cases, their ocular nerve is not even connected to their brain. They were born with a defect where the ocular nerve never finished connecting to the brain. So theoretically, there should be simply no way to get a visual signal from the retina to the brain.
Right.
And yet they die, they come out of their body, and they have a fully visual experience. There's a book called Mind Sight by Dr. Kenneth Ring and Sharon Cooper from the University of Connecticut. And it's a collection of case studies of just that type of case. And again, that line of evidence alone blows things apart.
You're talking about people who've never seen color. You know what I'm saying? I've read these cases. It's amazing because they're like blown away in their experience because I've never seen anything. They don't know what red or blue or yellow or green is, but then now they're seeing it in this experience.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine. For some of them, it's really disorienting at first, and they don't really like it.
Right.
It's like, what's
overstimulation.
Yeah.
You can imagine, but it also has got to be heart-wrenching when they return. To have that peace, to see that, to feel that, and then go back to the blindness is the part of it that I've always thought, oh my God, that would be heart-wrenching.
I can
that.
Yeah, I can only imagine. Luckily, though, one of the other side effects of a near-death experience tends to be an expanded view of self and reality, and this amazing feeling of peace and bliss. And a lot of people bring that back, even people who are blind. There are so many stories of people who are in an accident and their body is like destroyed. And and they look at it and they're like, oh my God, I got to get back into that thing, but they come back. And
I've had them on the show.
Have you?
I've had people on the show, more than a number of guests who've shared their
great.
whole afterlife experience. And it's exactly like that.
That's awesome.
I say for people that are afraid of this subject, really shouldn't be. They really should be listening because it will help with that fear. And I am somebody who lives in a fear and loathing life. Okay, that as a lot of I'm a worrywart. I fear dying not because of not having an afterlife. I fear being separated from my children or not being there for my children. That's a big one for me because my dad wasn't here for me. I want to be here for my children. So that's a big fear. But otherwise, it does help me to hear these things, these connections. Why I love the stories of the afterlife connection so much is that we're still connected. We're still here.
Totally. Totally.
But it gives a big hope is when people have lost loved ones in horrible accidents. They're like, I hope they didn't suffer. You hear all these stories and you hear these people that had horrible accidents, horrible painful, should be very painful. And they're like, I didn't feel a thing.
Yeah.
I could see myself. I could see my body being crushed. I could see this, but I didn't feel anything.
Yeah.
It gives you hope that our loved ones who have died in some kind of horrible way,
yes,
that they didn't feel it. They were, that something comes down and takes them out of that scenario, and it's peaceful for them. That's to me, the biggest thing I could tell somebody that's going through suffering of a loss like that.
Absolutely. Many people even report being taken out before the impact. Like,
exactly.
So,
Isn't that interesting?
So interesting. And I think that because a neuroscientist would explains away the near-death experience by saying oxygen deprivation or whatever, but you can't use oxygen deprivation to explain
before you've been hit.
Before you've been hit. It makes no sense. So yeah, that's another comforting thing to think about.
Now, like I said, this is my biggest interest in the paranormal field is life after death. All my favorite, I wanted to mention at the beginning of your book, you talk about one of my favorite shows, and I'm sad. I think it's gone now. I don't think they're bringing it back. Is The Good Place?
It's over, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh no, all the shows I like, but I love movies and TV shows. I didn't ever think about it until doing this show that I've always loved these movies that deal with the afterlife, or TV shows. Yeah. And Good Place was a really, really good one. I don't want to talk about it too much because I want to give it away. Go watch it, people. There's a whole twist to it. You know? But I love that you mentioned that. The other concept is, what is the afterlife? My fear, I believe in an afterlife, but I also fear is it going to be just some kind of dreamy haze? Am I going to have full consciousness? Am I going to know where I am? My grandmother, this is my afterlife connection experience. My grandmother had Alzheimer's, and we were really close. I was with her the day before she died. I'm haunted by the memories of her gasping for air, and it haunted me for weeks after. But the biggest thing, me and my mother, who were probably out of the family, the two most really affected by her passing, is she conscious of what's happened? Because it was, her last living weeks and months, she was, it's like, I don't know if you've dealt with somebody with Alzheimer's, but they're not there, She isn't. I mean, her last words were me, oh, my beautiful boy. She always knew me. She couldn't remember my name, but she knew me. Yeah. She'd say, my beautiful boy. And that was her last words. But our fear was like, does she, when you die, does that go away? And is she conscious? I saw her the day of her wake. I was at work. I was going to leave work to go to her wake. I'm in the bathroom. I saw her in a mirror. The mirror turned black. And then she stepped out of almost like a candlelight. Whoa. And I saw her face. And I stopped. I got my tears in my eyes. I'm trying to hold it in, and I go to tell them I need a break, go out on the floor, and my associate's out on my floor. One of them, who was a real skeptical, jerk, it's like, wow, we got to tell you something really weird happened. I'm like, what? And I'm like, just had this with my grandmother. A big rush of wind came through the store. The door was closed, but both of us felt it, and the skeptical one felt something rush through him. Wow. This is the same time I saw my grandmother in the bathroom. That was her way of letting me know I'm there. Yeah. I'm all right. And my mom had her own kind of personal experience too. And that's why I love these stories. And I love this, the connections you have with your father. He needed to let you know he's all right. And
he really did. Yeah. And I mean, and that's the whole reason I ended up writing the book, is because, when these things started to happen, I would share the story with someone. If someone in my life lost a loved one, I would share the story, and I found that it brought comfort to people, and that's the whole reason that the book exists, because what I write about The Good Place is at there's this episode where one of the lead characters is talking to this eternal being, and she's trying to explain to her what it's like to be a human, and he's just not getting it because he knows that his existence is eternal.
Ted Danson's character.
Ted Danson's character, yeah. He knows he's eternal, so he can't grasp what being a human is. And she says to him, we're all aware of death, so we're all a little bit sad all the time. And that really rang true to me. I mean, death is something
that's a great line.
Ever since I was a kid. I remember when my grandfather passed and seeing my dad crying for the first time, I remember thinking death was a terrible idea. If there really is a God, that my
why do you write this into the game plan?
Yeah, why would this be part of it?
What's about this?
Yes. So but this stuff is out there. These things that have happened, that definitely do happen. The evidence that's out there, that everything that happened to me, it can mitigate that fear of death.
That's what I was, yeah, exactly.
Knowing this is out there helps you not be so afraid of the end of the road. And if you're not afraid of how the journey ends, the journey itself becomes the thing. You can enjoy the journey if you're not worried about the end.
If you get on a roller coaster and you think you might die, you actually think you might die, you're not enjoying it. But if you really are rest assured you're going to make it to the end of that roller coaster, you're going to enjoy it. You're going to go, whoa! But
Great
if you're
analogy.
Die, you're going to like crap yourself and you
Great
get done with it, you're going to have a
analogy.
good time.
Yes. So, so that's what I'm here to tell people, that no matter what, what scientists or mainstream science currently says, there is fantastically powerful evidence out there that we are much more than our bodies. I think that is now unequivocal. That's been proven unequivocally for me. And if you look at all of the different lines of evidence, there's no doubt about. And to me, the evidence also very strongly points to the survival of consciousness beyond death.
I mean, for me, my first realization of death was really young too. In kindergarten, a neighbor girl that I played with died in a car accident. And I actually had my I see dead people moment when I was building a fort, and she appeared to me in that fort.
Oh my gosh. Dude, you are a little bit of a me. You've got green heads flying through the living room. You got grandma in the mirror. You got this girl showing up. You're a medium.
I've been told that. I've had guests that told me that I'm going to do it later in life, and I've wanted to investigate it, but this is my problem. And you're it right there, because, and I love it about you, because I'd be you too, is the when people don't know much about mediums, there's a whole expectation to it. Say, oh, I'm a medium. Oh, then, I mean, it's like that scene in Poltergeist, if you ever seen Poltergeist.
Oh, yeah.
When Craig T. Nelson's like, the little short medium there, and she like walks up the stairs and goes away, and she asks him something, and he's like sitting there. They're like, aren't you going to answer? He goes, I'm thinking it. He expects her to. She does in the movie, but that's not really how it works. I've studied it. I've learned it. I would love to investigate it more, but there's a fear to it too. There's an expectation. I don't want to get stuff wrong for people either.
Sure.
Mine have all been spontaneous things.
Yeah.
I've never tried.
Yeah,
but it's something I'm interested in.
I mean, there are a lot of well-intentioned people out there who are practicing mediumship that probably shouldn't be, at least not in a professional way, because there's a huge spectrum of ability here.
Yes.
But what you have experienced means to me that you're at least, there is some door in you that's open. Because the best mediums that I work with, because I ended up making a documentary about mediumship, my own documentary separate from the Netflix series. And the mediums that I work with, the best ones are people who have had experiences since they were children. So these are kids waking up, seeing grandma at the foot of their bed at night, which scares the crap out of me, the idea of that. But so they've had an innate ability, most of them, throughout their lives, and they've honed it and worked on it for sure. But then there are other people, there are places where you can sort of go to school now to become a medium.
I got my certified psychic certificate, or just like my paranormal investigator certificate. Yeah,
and I'll tell you, I went to one of those to do some research for the. All of this stuff is going on, and by the end of it, I'm like, I definitely have no mediumistic ability whatsoever. But the teacher thought I was great, so I was thinking, I don't know about this, guys. So yeah, you do. I agree with you. It's a big responsibility to.
That's what I mean.
To tell people that you're communicating with their deceased loved one. So I think it's great that you feel that responsibility. I mean, that's because not everyone necessarily does. So I have
friends, really good friends that are mediums, and I think they're excellent at what they do. And I'm like, I don't know if I could do that. You guys put yourselves out there every time. They come on my show and they do live readings. People call in, and I've done it. I've done like some tarot readings. I've tried to read for people. I don't know how good I was, but they nail it with people live on the air, and they even doubt themselves. I know their doubt before they get on. They're like, I don't know how good I'll be. I'm like, just give it a shot. We'll see how it goes. And they're excellent.
Yeah. I mean, for me, the way that it happened, mediumship, I was aware of from John Edward, from Crossing Over when I was in high school. And I thought, it was fascinating. But again, given my scientific bent, I was thinking if there's any
like, were you skeptical of the show when you're watching the whole time?
Yeah, I was just thinking.
Yeah.
It's a television show, right? So you never really know what the editing is like, or those people could be actors in the audience. I just don't know.
I bought his book. His first book that came out when he was doing the show.
Yeah,
and read it all,
yeah.
and like felt he was honest. I didn't feel like he'd be doing anything, but you don't know. There's a motive.
know.
There's money. But it's a big risk for Sci-Fi Network that took that show on. Was my one point I would make about it is like, if you're a network, you would have to have producers involved in faking it. You would have too many people would know, and the risk of backlash if it came out that you were faking it would be huge for your network. It would be real bad publicity. So that also maybe. But then later, as I've gone on doing the show, I've been a paranormal investigator, and know people have been on ghost hunting shows. They're like, oh yeah, they will fake it. But I'm like, that's different though. That's different. That's a ghost hunt. Would you fake communication between somebody's dead loved one who paid ticket money to be there with John Edwards? Then you're going to get backlash.
Yeah.
That's what made me doubt that they would fake it. I've heard all kinds. They had microphones in the audience. They had people walking around to get information. I'm like, I don't know. That'd be a huge risk for Sci-Fi Network at that time.
It's a huge, I won't give any names here, but I mean, I have some friends involved in television, and I think that making profits and getting ratings can be a big weight on the producers, and I don't think that every single producer out there is necessarily completely above greasing the wheels sometimes.
Not at all.
I'll put it that way. But that said, I've had some experience with John Edward, and I believe he's the real deal at this point. I believe he's the real deal. He was tested at the University of Arizona.
He was doing it years before there was a TV show. He didn't have a production staff or any of that. He was obviously impressing people. Before that point.
But so when back at that time, I was thinking, if what he's doing is real, again, surely I would have learned about it in one of my college classes. They right after teaching me about, what the ribosomes do in the cell, they would have said, oh, and by the way, there's some evidence out there that some human brains are able to talk to dead people. And since I'd never heard that, I thought there can't be too much to what John is doing on television. If there was anything really solid or concrete there, I was sure it would have been written up in a journal somewhere. So that's the place that I was in when my dad passed. That was my only relationship with mediumship at that point. And when my dad passed, my family was completely devastated. It was an utter, absolute shock. From our perspective, he died out of nowhere. And just like a day or two after the funeral, a phone call came into my mom's house from my second cousin's husband, telling my mother that his medium friend was in contact with my father, that my father had, of his own volition, contacted this medium, desperate to get a message to us. So for most people, mediumship is something they seek out. In our case, it just came, careening into our lives.
It's kind of like the ghost scenario of Patrick Swayze. I hate using that, but
totally,
sudden death. He has to find the nearest medium to get through to you. I think that story is amazing, though. That people are like, oh, that medium's just looking out to scam you or whatever. We're going to be coming out commercial break in about 7 minutes here, but I don't know if you want to get a little bit more into that experience. I don't want you to give away the book, but a little more. No. That's pretty incredible.
It was very incredible. Yeah. So this second cousin of mine, second cousin's husband, Chris, we were not close. I did not, I couldn't even picture him. When my mom said Chris called, I was like, Chris, and he was a hospital administrator. He had like this kind of big straight-laced job as a hospital administrator. When he called my mom that night, he had never called the house ever before. It was the very first time he'd ever called. So my mom was surprised. Again, it's like a day after burying my dad. And he says, hey, Liz, this is Chris. You remember me? And she's like, oh, yeah, Chris, hi. And he said, Liz, do you know what I do? And she was like, no, what do you mean? And he said, well, on the weekends, I have a ghost hunting team. And she said, Okay. And now my mom is completely baffled about what this phone call could possibly be about. This guy who has never called the house calling.
And your dad just recently passed. This has got to be a very awkward conversation for him.
I have talked to Chris since then. He's now become, well, we're close now. And I laugh every time I think about him making this phone call. He said he picked up the phone like 5 times. He's like trying to dial. And he's like, what am I going to say to this woman? He has no idea what my family's beliefs are about this stuff.
How you're going to react?
How we're going to react to it? No idea. Yeah. And as it turns out, he was investigating. He was out on an investigation with his team, and the medium on his team was sensing a guy named Robert. That's my dad's name. And she said he was desperate to get a message to his family. And her name was Christine, this medium. And then she said, but I don't think it's connected to this house necessarily. I think, Chris, this is somehow connected to your family. The guy's name is Robert, and his family is somehow involved in a fish restaurant. And at that point, when she said that, Chris remembered my sister owns a fish restaurant. And so he put it together. Oh, Robert, that's my cousin's ex-husband, and her daughter. His daughter owns a fish restaurant. So she said, this guy, he's not going to leave us alone until we get this message to them. He's like really persistent. He's desperate. And it makes sense, again, given the state that, we were in like suddenness. I was in like a full-blown existential crisis. Like, I don't see any point in going on at all if someone like my dad disappeared. So complete out of the blue phone call saying that there's a medium who is being almost harassed by your father, desperate to get a message to you. And that totally changed then the course of my life.
No kidding. I mean, like I said, I believe there's an afterlife. I question everything, but I do believe there's an afterlife. I've had enough evidence, but my fear of separation from my children. If something happened to me, I'm on the other side. I'm gonna be hitting up a number of my medium friends to try to get a message to my kids to let them know I'm all right.
Totally.
Especially if I can, they can, the spirits can, they know what you're going through. They see what you're going through, and I can, your father loves you. That would be desperate. You would do anything for your children. So he that's totally an amazing story.
Yeah. He totally would do anything at all. And now it's clear. He came out of his body. He looked around. He saw the terrible shape he had left us in. The wake of his of his death had left us in tatters. And he looked around for the closest medium he could find, and it happened to be the second cousin's husband's friend. And that's how it happened. Yeah.
You mentioned in the book that, he even, I think your last conversation, he called you over to talk about, his will or whatever, right? So you think he had some kind of sense it was coming?
I do now.
Internal, subconscious?
I do. The last day we had together was, first of all, it was perfect. If you had to script your last day, if he had to script it, it would have been that day. And I explained the whole story in the book. But now when I look back at that, it seems to me that at least subconsciously, he knew something was up. 30 minutes before my dad died, 30 minutes before he died, my dad said to me, "Oh, I'm not afraid to die."
You talked to him 30 minutes before?
30 minutes. We were watching a Monday night football game together. He had wanted to talk to me that day desperately. I lived and worked in New York at that time.
Yeah.
He lived in Connecticut, and I saw him every other week. And that week, he really wanted to see me on that Monday. So anyway, I was home in Connecticut. We were watching a Monday night football game together, and we were talking about his mom who had Alzheimer's, as you were mentioning before.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And I said, my grandmother was afraid of dying. That was, she had lived really healthily and well into her 90s, and death was not something that she was very afraid. Yeah. And I said to him that night, I'm like, yeah, but Dad, for her, as hard as Alzheimer's is for us, there's nothing harder than your mom not knowing who you are anymore. So I don't mean
so frustrating for them.
Yeah. Don't want to diminish that. But for the person going through it, it can be a blessing in that she's not afraid of dying anymore. Now she's kind of, for my grandmother, it worked out that she was basically happy most of the time, just not totally aware of where she was or who we were, but she was not afraid of dying anymore. So I said, for her, it's kind of a blessing. She's not afraid to die. And my dad said, "Oh, I'm not afraid to die," which was weird because we were talking about, that was the farthest thing from my mind. And the game ended, and he drove around. We were at my mom's house, and they had gotten divorced many years before.
Yeah.
His house was only 5 minutes away from my mom. So we hugged. He drove around the corner to his house, walked inside, and died.
Oh my God.
Yeah, yeah.
You do wonder if these scenes are scripted. You know, they talk about life plans and, you know, how psychics can see things in the future that are going to happen. I don't like to believe things are predestined. I really don't. I go with the Yoda, you know, the future's always in motion idea. But that somehow, because I've had my experiences where I've seen purely the future. You know, no way to describe it. I saw it before it happened. Instances through my life.
Wow.
But I don't want to believe it's predestined. Like your dad was predestined to die there. But at the same time, it seemed that was his time. That was his time to go.
Yeah. I don't
like it's scripted.
I don't know if scripted or, I mean, that day definitely felt scripted. You know, if we're going to start talking about like non-local consciousness, which is, you know, and quantum mechanics, that can start to explain some of the precognitive type of things. Because
like time is, you know, irrelevant.
It doesn't even exist in the quantum.
That's a whole other rabbit hole, but we got to go to commercial break. So we're gonna hold on that thought, and we will open up the phone lines when we come back. I'd love to hear people's personal stories tonight. You want to call in? What personal experience have you had with a deceased loved one, or have you a near-death experience? Any of those? Let's talk about it tonight. This is what the show's about: openness to talk about these things that many people shy away from. Let's let them know it's easy to talk about it. We can talk about it. We're all pieces of the puzzle, discovering what all of us are inevitably going to end up is dead and what happens afterwards. All right, guys, not to leave you on that somber note, but we will right back after this short commercial break.
Conducting an experiment into the combined effects of sensory deprivation and hallucinatory drugs. The subject of the experiment is himself, and the experiment is out of control. Ken Russell's Altered States, a film that must not be missed, is in the West End now. Altered States, Certificate X.
Do you wish for more paranormal and spiritual content? The Paranormal Chronicles magazine is a free digital magazine crammed with the very best in paranormal and spiritual articles and features. No sign-up, no subscription, just free reading and knowledge for you. Read today at www.paranormalchronicles.com/magazine.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... nope. That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
The night is alive. Join us and take a walk on the weird side when you tune in to the Kingdom of Nye, hosted by Heather Wade, the finest in late night talk. Listen live free weeknights starting at 9 p.m. Pacific time at thekingdomofnye.com, talkstreamlive.com, and the Paranormal Radio app. Wanna take a ride?
Join us every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time for Weird Wednesday, the live stream, with your hosts Jamie, the Living Dead Girl, and Rob, the Phantom, where we'll talk about all things paranormal, including zodiac, astrology, tarot card and oracle card readings, live ghost boxing and spirit communication, where we'll do Voices from Beyond, the Cold Case Files. So we hope you join us live on Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time. We hope to see you there. Bye-bye.
Paranation Magazine is a new paranormal magazine based out of Denver, Colorado. Our goal isn't just to give you the best paranormal content out there, but to promote paranormal unity. We're doing this by giving everyone an opportunity to tell their stories and to share their experiences. For more information, follow us on Facebook at Paranation Magazine and soon, paranationmag.com.
I've Never Met a Dead Person I Didn't Like is the extraordinary travels of a young, alone, and broke psychic in the highly anticipated new book from internationally renowned psychic, medium, medical intuitive, and best-selling author Sherry Dillard. Critics have described I've Never Met a Dead Person I Didn't Like as an engrossing memoir, an empowering story of how a broken girl came to accept her psychic gift, a refreshing and fun read. I've Never Met a Dead Person I Didn't Like is available through Amazon, Kindle, Barnes & Noble, and wherever books are sold.
Tired of school?
Who was Joan of Arc?
Noah's wife? Like to travel?
Let's go back into history. Let's reach out and touch someone.
Want to meet people in the past?
Put them in the Iron Maiden. Iron Maiden? Excellent! Execute them. Bogus.
Then hitch a ride with George Carlin, Keanu Reeves, and Alex Winter in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure from Orion Pictures.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from Talkstream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Nervous?
Yes. I don't like this.
You only have 75 more to go. Okay? What's this one?
It's a couple of wavy lines.
Sorry. This isn't your lucky day.
I know. I'm getting a little tired of this.
You volunteered, didn't you? We're paying you, aren't we?
Yeah, but I didn't know you were going to be giving me electric shocks. What are you trying to prove here anyway?
I'm studying the effect of negative reinforcement on ESP ability.
The effect? I'll tell you what the effect is. It's pissing me off.
Well, then maybe my theory is correct.
You can keep the $5. I've had it.
I will, mister.
You're listening to Paranormal Soup, bringing you the weird every Sunday night. Call into the show and join the discussion. The call-in lines are 219-230-4444 or 260-225-9419 or by Skype caller ID OOJBland00 or JBland Paranormal Soup. And now to your host, Jason Bland.
Tonight we're talking to our guest, Mike Anthony. He's the author of Love, Dad, How My Father Died Then Told Me He Didn't. An amazing stories we're talking tonight about his father going to a medium, not long right after he passed, finding a medium for a distant family member just to get a message to him. I mean, these are the stories I love. These are my favorite stories when it has to do with a loved one that's passed on. It's as sad as it is. It's so enlightening. All these experiences. I've had so many people tell me their experiences over the years before I even did the show about a loved one coming across to them. And I think they are the most incredible experiences. And they're heaven sent in a way. I had my own experience. My perspective was already that there was an afterlife, but it helped me understand that my grandmother was all right. It's so important for people to understand I've lost a loved one. And that's what we're talking about tonight. What is your experience that made you a believer in the afterlife? The phone lines are open. Call in. Share your experience with us tonight. Or ask your questions of our guest. Again, he also was featured in Surviving Death. It's a great show. I definitely highly recommend you should watch on Netflix. I truly enjoyed it. Like you said, they kind of give you like a beginner's in all these subjects, but they do a really good job of it for somebody who's not a beginner in it. I loved it. It was entertaining. So definitely check that out. And the phone lines are open. Call in, but let's get back to our guest. Welcome back to the show, Mike. Oh, I gotta unmute you. I gotta unmute you. There we go. Now you can talk.
Thanks for having me. Thanks so much.
So, we're getting a lot of rabbit holes here tonight on this subject. Ultimately comes down, is there an afterlife? Yes, we believe there's an afterlife. Question is, what does it entail? What does it entail for the spirits on their side, how they're communicating with you and these experiences? And I think your story, your experience with your dad's, incredible. Not just the experience you have with the medium, but you've had others where he's continuously trying to communicate with you.
Yeah, there have been many things that my dad, what I now believe is my dad, has done. Things here in the physical world that have been really astounding. And not just things, there have been things with butterflies. For instance, I tell a story about what happened with a butterfly.
Love that story.
Amazing. With Penn Jillette, I mean, and I know what the debunkers have to say about the butterflies.
No.
I know about patternicity and pareidolia and all of that stuff.
The blue car syndrome is what skeptics would bring you up. But your story does not fall under blue car syndrome because, first, I think people should hear the butterfly story. I really do. I know it's kind of in the Surviving Death in your book, but I think that's one of the best ones because you're literally at Penn Jillette. The two biggest skeptics, and here you are being confirmed. I think it's an excellent story.
Yeah, butterflies quickly became a thing after my dad passed. It was one of the first things said by this medium that called our house.
Really?
Yeah, yep. So it very early on became a thing. They started to show up in places that seemed pretty odd to me, and at times that were pretty profound. So that was sort of already going on in the background. Now, meanwhile, I had started to make this documentary. After that medium called our house, my sister and I went to a professional evidential medium, someone who calls herself a professional evidential medium, and it blew us away completely. She knew things she could not possibly have known, things that were not published anywhere. She had a code word that I had come up with between my dad and I.
Yes.
She came up with that. I mean, there was no doubt in my mind something was happening here that we can't explain yet. And this woman, I called her back like a year later and I said, listen, I need to make sure that you're doing what you say you're doing because I'm telling people about this now. And I was starting to feel a responsibility to make sure that I was telling the absolute truth. So I said, I want to make a documentary. I want to sit you in front of a camera and I'm going to walk total strangers in and have you do readings for them and see if you can do for them when I know there's no way you can be cheating. See if you can do for them what you did for me. And sure enough, I've now had her do this with over 20 people. I've watched her time and again change people's lives. Often I'm the only person on set who knows who's showing up that day. So unless I'm giving her the information, which I know I'm not, there's no way to explain what she's doing, at least in a way that science can currently understand. So I had become convinced after watching her that mediumship in some cases is a genuine phenomenon. As it happened, so my day job is working as a bartender on Broadway, and I work for the Nederlander Theater Organization. And one of our theaters was hosting Penn and Teller. They were coming to do a short engagement of their magic show at the Marquee Theater on Broadway, which is one of our theaters. And I got a hold of the playbill, and they were doing their bit called the Psychic Comedian, in which they debunk mediums, primarily mediums. So I thought, this is great. I'm going to go watch this. I was now so confident that mediumship was a real thing, given what I was seeing in my own life. I was just going to go have some fun and sort of slyly smile in the background, thinking, you guys think you know so much. I know the real answer. That's how I was feeling going in, right?
Yeah.
So he does his opening speech to this bit, and Penn Jillette, Penn and Teller, but Penn especially for people who aren't aware, he is vehemently opposed to anyone who calls themselves a medium. He believes that there is simply no such thing as anything paranormal, and therefore, since there's not, in his mind, anyone who is calling themselves a medium is lying, and therefore that makes them just the scum of humanity.
Yeah, he hates them.
He hates them. And I understand that, given that he believes there's no way that they're actually communicating with dead people. So therefore they're preying on grieving people. So he sees them as the lowest of the low. And he holds nothing back about this. Like, he had a show on Showtime called bullshit.
Yeah.
Is that okay to say?
Yeah, we'll try to keep the.
Oh,
But yes,
BS.
that's fine.
He, and he used that show to debunk anything paranormal and focused very heavily on mediumship. So he starts his whole spiel talking about how they were going to do some tricks, some mentalism tricks. And mentalism is an illusion in which people, the mentalists can make it seem as though they're reading your mind, right? And some people who do this, they're extraordinary. I cannot figure out how they do what they do. It truly is extraordinary. And Penn and Teller were about to do a mentalism bit. But before they begin, he says, now I just need to be clear. Neither of us has any paranormal ability. There is simply no such thing as anything paranormal in the whole world. Anyone who tells you that they are a medium or that there is anything paranormal, it is BS. And he paused.
And I'd be in the crowd with my finger up in the my middle finger up.
Yeah.
Again,
he's saying that, and I was in the back going, all right, you know what I mean? Just because I knew. So I was just kind of coyly smiling. So he pauses again between the B and the S for effect,
Yeah.
And then he goes and does the trick. And the trick was stunning. It was amazing. I mean, it totally looks like they are reading people's minds.
Yeah.
And by the end of it, I was completely crestfallen. Because I was thinking, oh my gosh, could it be that this woman, her name was Angelina Diana, the woman that I was working with at that time, could it be that she is doing whatever it is that Penn just did? Could she have tricked us somehow? That seemed like a stretch to me because Penn and Teller are world-class magicians. They have spent countless hours honing their skills, obviously. And Angelina had like a full-time job for most of her life before she, started focusing full-time on mediumship. She had a family. It was hard to believe that somehow in her off hours, she became this master mentalist. But anyway, I was crushed. I left the theater that night thinking maybe I've been fooled. I've put all this time and money now into this documentary, and maybe it's all just nothing. It's all going to amount to nothing.
He crushed you.
Crushed me.
Crushed you in that cloud. Yeah.
Crushed me. So I decided
that.
He's very good at that. So I decided I was going to go back the next night to try to see if I could pick up something of how they were doing what they were doing. And the Marquis Theater, by the way, it's inside the Marquis Hotel on Broadway. So you have to go in the circular doors on the street level of Broadway. You go up an escalator. You go in through another set of doors to get into the lobby of the theater. Then another set of doors, small doors, to get into the actual theater. So it's a bit of a maze to get up there and into the theater. So I go in and I'm leaning against the back wall, and this time I'm sad. Frankly, I'm just like sad, thinking, and does this mean that my dad is not here? Have I lost that evidence I thought I had? And he goes to do the bit again, verbatim. He gives that same opening speech, and he says, "Everything you're about to see is B," and he pauses. And in between the pause, between the B and the S, I see a flutter up in the lights, and this thing is a big butterfly flying about 15 feet above Penn's head. And it's so big that people in the audience start to notice it, So there's like a ooh, ah going throughout the crowd, this titter going out throughout the crowd. And I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Because again, the butterfly had already become a thing between my dad and I.
Right.
It was already a symbol, a meaningful occurrence to see a butterfly. Yes. To see one at that moment, at the moment Penn Jillette is telling me that there's no such thing as anything paranormal, at that moment, this butterfly appears on the second floor of the Marquis Hotel on Broadway. If you see a butterfly in Times Square outside, it's unusual. We don't have a lot of greenery in Times Square. It's all pavement and people,
it's a steel jungle.
Completely. It's very rare to see a butterfly at all outside. To see it inside this theater, I was stunned. And suddenly, I was sure in that moment, I floated out of that theater thinking, oh my God, my dad just gave me the most amazing gift in the world.
And you needed it.
I needed it so badly. And if only Penn knew that his very speech against the idea of anything paranormal seemed to be being used by my dad to tell me that no, don't pay attention to this. You are on the right track. I mean, I was totally blown away. So
he might know.
Just for the icing on the cake, a few days later, I was back at my theater, the Richard Rodgers, where Hamilton is.
Yeah.
And I was talking with my friend Marie. We're behind the bar, and I'm recounting the story. And I'm saying, and Marie's a really smart lady. And I'm saying, Marie, I mean, I really feel, as crazy as it sounds, I feel like my dad somehow helped this butterfly manifest or appear or somehow be in that theater at that moment. And I was like, and have you ever seen a butterfly in a Broadway theater? And as she's
never been to Broadway, but no.
Yeah.
Right?
She works we've worked at Broadway for 14 years.
Never, I'm sure.
And as she's about to say, no, I've never seen one, I see this flutter out of the corner of my eye. And I turn around, and there's this freaking butterfly in our theater now, as Marie and I are having this conversation. It lands up in the chandelier. I have pictures in the book.
Yeah, we see it too.
You see the butterfly, and you see the expression on some of my coworkers' faces. Some of the ushers are looking at it, and they're like, you can see the look of incredulity on their faces, and they don't even know the story. They don't even know what's going on with me and my dad and butterflies. That look on their faces is just the surprise of seeing a butterfly at all inside a Broadway theater. So, I mean,
that had to be pretty emotional right there at that moment for you.
Again, I was walking on air. I really felt like I was floating off the ground. It was really incredible. And then, other things down the line happened with butterflies that completely blew me away, something that I didn't know was possible. For instance, in one of the most important moments of my life, I tell the story in the book, something had happened that is way beyond what the average person, considers to be possible, involving something called physical mediumship. And directly after this thing happening, we were descended upon, me and my friend Leslie, the woman who wrote the story in the Times about the ATIP. We were descended upon by, I guess, a flock of monarch butterflies. I didn't know that they traveled in flocks. I've never seen this before in my life. Suddenly, there were hundreds, not exaggerating, hundreds of monarch butterflies on top of us. We had this amazing thing happen, and then we walked out of the house to take a walk to try to just think about this amazing thing that had just happened with my dad. It involved my dad.
Yeah.
And on this walk, we are descended upon by hundreds of monarch butterflies. Hundreds. I can't not overstate how many that they were like landing on us. You know what I mean? Like, it was like they had suddenly swarmed the area. Leslie said that this was in Massachusetts. She said she had not seen a butterfly the entire season. That was the first time she'd seen a butterfly, and there were hundreds, literally hundreds. That level of extraordinary.
Well, I've always been interested in this aspect of a loved one coming through to somebody through animals or insects. My wife, her grandmother was like the patriarch of the family. I mean, it was a heavy loss. She was somebody who was scared of dying, but at the same time was ready. Like, I am done. I'm hurting. I want to go. And it did happen out of nowhere in a way. We knew she was getting worse, but it did kind of come out of nowhere on us. Her and my wife had this thing with cardinals. She would call them when she was a little girl red jays, instead of blue jays, red jays. And the morning of her passing, we got the news, my wife, and I have birds. I do have birds all the time coming in this yard, but we don't ever really see the red cardinal very often at all. I was trying to think of times we'd ever seen it in our yard. Yeah. And that morning, there it was, just perched, like waiting for her to come out and look out the window. There was the cardinal. And in another instance, my son, who has like sensory disorder, he can't stand loud noises and all this stuff. I was fearing this trip to Chicago, field trip, and like, how is he going to handle this? All the noise, the craziness of it. It's just too much for him. And at the end of the trip, we get to the train station to leave, and I had to take him off to the side into like a closed area that's too hot, but is the only way to get the noise factor down for him. And I'm like, oh my God, he's about ready to just totally flip a lid. And I look out, and there's this cardinal fighting this praying menace. My son is a monster kid, man. Like, we've been watching the Godzilla, movies, the King Kong movies. He loves monsters. If they eat people, Jurassic Park, that's his favorite stuff. This cardinal's taking on this praying mantis on the train tracks. I recorded it and uploaded it right away. I think I live streamed it actually when it happened, because I knew it was her. I had this gut feeling it was her, because it saved me. It saved his meltdown went right away, because he's like, oh, what is this? Look at him fight. Oh my God, watch Dad. Look. I swear it was her saved me that day.
That's
maybe
amazing.
I'm just putting stuff on, but it could have, it was a cardinal, her bird.
That's well, that's a great story, man. In one of the episodes, we have do an episode on what are called after death communications, which are these sort of spontaneous things that are objectively real. They happen in the physical world, birds, butterflies, things of that nature. And the cardinal. These are a friend of mine named Lori. When her grandmother passed, she was very, they knew she was on her way, and had not many days left, but she was still conscious. And her two daughters, so Lori's mom, her two daughters sat with their mom and they said, "Mom, when you get there, you've got to get us a message. You got to get us a message." And they decided specifically on a cardinal. And her mom said, "Okay, I'll do what I can." Not long after the funeral, it might have been the day of, I can't remember exactly. The family's together, mourning the loss, and this cardinal flies into the window and kind of, knocks itself silly for a second, and sits there. So they go out and they're like, "Oh my goodness, this is a cardinal." And she picks it. One of the daughters picks the cardinal up, and we have a lot of this video but it's actually like a 30-minute encounter.
It's amazing. People, you got to see it. You have to see it.
My goodness. At one point, she, so the two daughters are like crying. They're sure this is their mom. So she goes like this, because the bird's sitting on her finger. She goes like that to, let it fly off into the sky. And it goes off for a couple of feet and then decides it's not done delivering this message yet. So it comes back and lands now on her shoulder. And it stayed with them for so long. They're petting it. They're just loving up on this cardinal. Finally, they put it into a tree. And at that point, it takes off into the sky. So the cardinal was totally fine. Just got a little bit of just needed to clear its head for a moment. But just an extraordinary, and there's no way, no scientist on the planet, no Penn Jillette could tell these women that was anything.
But he would. He
might.
He'd be that mean. I'm sure he would. I'm nothing against Penn Jillette. Nothing against him. I understand. What has made him that hardcore skeptical? I don't know. I have friends that are illusionists, and they have open minds to this stuff, but they do like, well, it can be fake this way. This is my point with the illusionists. Just because you can find a way to make an illusion that replicates what person experienced doesn't mean that's what it was.
100%. 100%. Yes.
Your exposition on that is a false premise. Just because you can find a way to recreate it doesn't make it not real or not what an illusion.
Now, and there's a long history, right, of illusionists, quote unquote, debunking mediumship. Goes back
Houdini.
Houdini, right? Now, there was a woman named Marjorie, a medium, Marjorie Crandon in Massachusetts. This woman was phenomenal. The stuff that happened at her seances were phenomenal. Scientific American, the magazine, was holding a contest at that time. This was in 1920 something, maybe earlier even. It was when seances were, spiritualism was in its heyday. So people were having seances all over the country, especially in America at that time.
Yeah, spiritualism of the 1900s was huge.
Huge. It was before like everyone had a TV and a radio. So instead, you got together on Saturday night with your loved ones and you sat around a table in a dark room and tried to contact dead people. That was the fun thing to do.
Nothing else to do, right?
Nothing else to do. But so much stuff started happening at some of these gatherings that the scientific world of the day got interested and involved and started to try to see if they could use the scientific method to determine if anything that happening in these seance rooms was legit. Was actual proof of something paranormal. I don't like the word paranormal necessarily because it's got this connotation to it now.
Connotations, just like medium.
It's just like medium, yeah. They think of it as it's like a non-serious thing, but it's totally not that anyway. So Scientific American says, I think the contest was for $3,000 or $5,000, something like that, which at that time was a lot of money.
Big money.
For anyone who could prove that they were doing something paranormal. Houdini quickly debunked a lot of mediums, and to be sure, a lot of people were cheating. That's not a question. However, there was this woman named Marjorie that had completely stumped the scientific panel that was deciding whether or not the phenomenon were living up to the standards Scientific American had put forth, and they were ready to give her the prize money. And this is not after one sitting. They had hundreds of sittings with this woman. And some of the brightest scientists of the day were convinced after using the tightest controls, right? In some cases, Marjorie was in the room with no one but a scientist. It was just the scientist and her. There's a famous picture that I think I included in the book. If not, you can find it out there, of this hand, this disembodied hand, lifting a stool off of the ground. There's no one else in that room but Marjorie and the scientist. The scientist clearly has her two hands. That hand belonged to a person who was not a living person. I mean, that's the bottom line. Anyway, hundreds of sittings, ready to give her the prize money. Houdini, who had an enormous ego, enormous. I mean, that's not doesn't seem to be in very much of question.
Ask his brother.
Yeah.
Sorry. Go ahead.
He in my opinion, he couldn't handle not being able to figure something out like this. And Marjorie had him stumped in a couple of ways. But he ended up debunking her, quote unquote. And he did a whole stage show focused particularly on her. Now, in his show, and pamphlets were passed out, he ended up destroying this woman's life, by the way. Destroyed her life. She died from alcoholism. I mean, he really did a number on this woman. Even though they had become friends. There's a great book called The Witch of Lime Street for anyone interested in this particular subject. But in his stage show that he used to debunk her, he did some tricks that could explain some of the things she was doing. Okay, it could explain some of the stuff. But as you said, just because an illusionist can recreate some of the things going on does not mean that that is exactly what's going on in that seance room with that medium, right?
Exactly.
But worse than this, there were things that Marjorie did. She was known as Mina to her friends. The things that some of the things that Mina did were beyond Houdini's ability to figure out. He just simply could not figure out a way to do it. So what he did was completely leave them out of the story.
Right.
He didn't even mention them. And that is just simply not intellectually fair. You know,
honest.
It's just not honest.
It's not honest.
It's
a lie.
It's a lie by omission. Absolutely. So that's sort of the history that we have here that we're up against with illusionists, quote unquote, debunking this stuff.
Nothing against illusionists or Harry Houdini for trying to debunk it. It needed to be done. The spiritualist movement was full of frauds. It was,
totally.
And that's the real jerks in this too. Were the frauds that screwed up the whole concept.
I agree.
You know, something was real there. There were real people with abilities, but then you get all these frauds, and nothing's changed, man. In 2021, you get all these frauds that come in and take people's money because money's the motive, man. And it screwed the pooch for everybody and the scientific community on this topic. Because after that, you know, many other instances of this.
Unfortunately, and again, you're right. I mean, Houdini, you know, he really wanted to hear from his mom when she died, and he never got to him an acceptable communication. And so he's thinking he's doing a public service by outing these people. And he did catch a lot of people cheating again, totally. But unfortunately, his debunking was so thorough that scientists of the day, even till now, would be risking their scientific reputations, perhaps risking their jobs if they're a scientist connected to a university, if they went to the board of directors and said, listen, I want to do a study into mediumship because Houdini did such a great job at getting the message out there that all mediumship is fake. To this day, it adversely affects the inquiry into this stuff. It's hard to get a scientist of note to publicly discuss this stuff because of the stigma that is still around due to Houdini. And it goes to other things like UFOs, which we mentioned earlier. I mean, people ask me all the time now during these interviews, because this is another interest of mine, UFOs, you know, do I believe in UFOs? And I say, what do you mean, do I believe in them? They are there. They have been captured.
You believe them or not, they're right there.
Yeah, there's no belief. They're there. I mean, we have captured them on the most high-tech, you know, these forward-looking
military-grade equipment.
Military grade. The most high-tech stuff human beings have ever created. Radar equipment combined with FLIR cameras. I mean, it's not a question of belief anymore. They are there.
It shouldn't be. It really shouldn't be.
It should not be. I mean, and yeah, people's this wall of this stigma attached to these areas of inquiry is very, it's going to take a lot of chipping to knock all the way down.
We're getting there. We're getting there, though. I mean, I've seen it in my own personal life because everybody who's known me since high school pretty much knows I'm the weird kid that believes in UFOs, aliens, and ghosts and all that stuff. And I've seen more people that were very skeptical in the past be more open to these topics to me now because it's a little more acceptable,
Definitely.
Even ghosts, there's been an opening awareness. I'm excited to see it. I tell people all the time, like, I watch all these people talk about the Kardashians on YouTube or talk about Star Wars. They get thousands and thousands and thousands of views and subscribers and all this stuff and video game channels. And here I am with my little subscribers and I love my chat room, my audience. Thank you so much. I love you. But we're small compared to them, a little bit small. I'm waiting for the day where suddenly, like, the UFO lands on the White House lawn, and everybody's like, now they're coming to me to ask questions.
Right.
So now they're coming to all these YouTube channels like, what's going on with this alien thing? And I didn't pay any attention to it now. I'm like, I'll get viewers eventually. Disclosure's going to happen, maybe. I
have been holding on to my "I told you so"
for
so many years. Yes. Oh my God. And I'll tell you, I mean, more stuff is coming. I have zero doubt about that.
You've heard from the senators that there's satellite data. Our military grade satellites have data and info on these UFOs that could be released.
So much, so much. And there are better photographs that I think have been taken from much closer.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm looking forward to see what ends up being in this. I was skeptical about this report that's going to be coming out from Congress.
I still am.
At first. I
not because of the intent, because like Senator Rubio and the other ones involved in this, not because of them. They're trying, but the military is shutting them down.
Yeah, they're clearly not being
cooperative.
Yeah, I mean, we're still clearly being lied to, right? Because we have Eric Davis, right, who is an astrophysicist, top secret security clearance. This guy, again, brilliant scientist. He's quoted in the New York Times article of 2020, maybe. I think it was last year, this article, where he basically said, Roswell happened. We have craft that are not from here. He talked about a crash retrieval program. Okay. So we're talking about having physical craft here within our grasp. So there's no need to be looking at grainy freaking, green pictures of pyramids.
What I want to say to people nowadays, like with this stuff, like are just discovering this, is like, man, I've been here since Bob Lazar. Welcome to the party, people. Welcome to
Bob
the party.
Lazar. He's like Bob Lazar's got the ultimate "I told you so."
Right.
I mean, man, he's got like what nine of those craft. He says, but Lazar. I mean, so many of these things are so difficult because there's been so much disinformation about a lot of this stuff. But so obviously, if you have one scientist telling us that there are off-world craft in our possession, and then we have this big story about the Pentagon releasing grainy videos, obviously there's a disconnect here, right? Yeah. I mean, but it's something. I guess it's something.
Something's happened. We got somebody on the phone line I want to get to here. I don't see the area code for it. I don't think. No, I don't. But you're on the phone. If you're there, you're only one.
Hi, it's Janice calling from Canada.
Hi, Janice. Thanks for calling in.
I just sent Rob and Jamie a picture. The story to go with it was after my dad passed, he had such a good sense of humor. I was going through a lot of stuff at the time. Really, really bad day. And I went out for a drive to clear my head. Pulled over this little hill. And what I saw off to one side of the road was a pasture full of cows. Every single cow was lying down.
Whoa.
The story behind that, when I was younger, my dad said it's always a good day for fishing when the cows are lying down.
Mm. Oh.
And I was a sucker. I believed everything my dad said. Mom said he was pulling my leg. It was just something he made up to see how gullible I was. How many times have you actually driven past a field full of cows, or they're all laying down?
Never. And I have
I don't
cows all
think
over
I-
the place where I'm here in Indiana. And yeah, maybe a couple be lying down, but the whole field, not usually.
Yes, every single cow in that field was lying down. So I knew that that was my dad that was there showing his support for me, getting me through that day. That was just, it was very, very moving. Most of my dreams that I have are ones where I have visits from them, though, just to let me know that they're around, that they're
I've had that
checking in
too.
to see how I'm doing. Yeah. But I just thought I'd call in and share that with you guys.
Well,
that
thank you.
there's-
And thank you for
there's
giving them the
messages that-
picture.
You should have gone fishing.
Yeah, it was just it was just too cool. It was just too cool to pass up, and I knew if I posted anything on Facebook that no one would believe me unless they saw it.
Yeah, you know where to come. Paranormal Soup. No problem. Do you have a question for? Do you have a question for our guest at all tonight, or?
Well, there they are.
What's your thoughts on this, Mike?
Yeah, I mean that's a fantastic story. I mean, there are so many things like this that happen, that we're not ever going to be able to take into a lab for science to measure in some way. But that does not mean that these things have not happened and that they don't have a meaning. So, I mean, it's my personal opinion that things like this can absolutely be signs, be influenced in some way by our deceased loved ones. I've seen enough to say that this stuff happens.
You know, Janice, what I always tell people when they tell me these stories, I'm like, you know how you know it's real? It's because you know. There's a little inner voice that tells you, look at this. This is me. You hear it. You feel it. You know it's a sign. You're not just like stretching or reaching for stuff. You feel it. There's a knowing to it. I really believe that.
As soon as I saw that, I knew it was Dad.
Exactly.
It was right there.
Well, thank
But
you.
I just thought I'd tell you that I'm really enjoying the show tonight, and I certainly will be looking for the book.
Awesome.
But
Yes.
also for people to pay attention to their dreams.
Yes, totally.
Oh, yeah.
That's a whole other subject to get into too. Well, thank you,
Mhm.
Janice. You have a great night.
Reiki blessings all.
Bye-bye.
No, I mean that's a perfect example. And like I always tell people, trust your gut. What did your gut tell you about that? What do you feel
Right.
that was about? Because that's really what's going to be your clue.
Absolutely. Yeah. Again, like there's this dictum sort of in science that nothing has happened until it's happened twice. And
paranormal.
Not in the paranormal. That's the thing. It can make sense in a lab setting. But this stuff, a lot of this stuff, if consciousness is involved in it, which it seems like it is, and there's very clear evidence to me that consciousness affects the material world. I mean, we know this through the double slit experiment, right? The famous and very troubling to science observer effect, which,
And Schrodinger's cat.
Yes, absolutely. Schrodinger. Yeah. And this stuff has like quantum physicists beating their heads against the wall. I interviewed Dr. Amit Goswami, who is this brilliant quantum physicist.
Oh my God. Really?
Do you know him?
Yeah. Self-Aware Universe or
Yes,
Unconscious
yes.
Universe. That's one of my favorite books. That's like
Yeah.
one of my all-time favorite books. You got to interview him? You lucky bastard. I'm
Yeah,
jealous. Oh my God. That's one of my all-time favorite books.
Yeah, he's great. And he's got like 10 books now. He's brilliant. So I could only
Yes.
understand like half of what he said to me. But,
Oh my God.
he said, he was like, scientists right now, they're banging their heads against the wall, trying to figure out how to deal with the observer effect, right? Trying to deal with the fact that the universe is expanding at a rate that it shouldn't be, given our equations. When so many problems would be solved if they simply accepted that consciousness is not created by the brain and that it is a fundamental aspect of reality, and that it can affect reality and it exists in a non-local way. It's not confined to the skull. But instead, he said to me that, science right now twists itself into knots, trying to avoid
To explain it. Or even trying to explain it, they're going to twist themselves into knots.
Yes, because they just so deeply want to avoid the possibility that consciousness is not brain created. Science is only can only go so far. That's what I now understand. I mean, the very foundations of what we build our understanding of the world on, our equations on, is a mystery to us, right? We used to think that protons, neutrons, and electrons were the smallest part of the universe. Now we believe that those are made up of gluons and quarks and other various fundamental particles. And then we think, well, what makes a quark a quark? And now one of the major theories out there is string theory, which says that every bit of matter is a vibrating string of energy, and it's the frequency of the vibration that gives the thing its physical properties, right? But if that does turn out to be the case, and that's a huge if, but if that turns out to be the case, and you ask a string theorist like Brian Greene, who is a brilliant scientist.
I love his book too.
His book, Fabric of the Cosmos, The Elegant Universe. Yeah, I love this guy. But if you ask him, well, what makes the string vibrate, Dr. Greene? He has no answer. We have no answer for why the string should be vibrating, if that in fact turns out to be the thing. So the bottom line is, all of this stuff, it's all mathematic formulations, right? They're theoretical formulations that don't, math can only get so close to ultimately describing the universe. That's something that we know. We introduced something called limits in calculus to try to address this problem. We know that math is only going to be, it gets better and better. We get closer and closer with these equations. But in my mind, I don't think that they will ever fully be able to describe reality, because quantum mechanics does not lend itself to pretty equations. It simply doesn't. I mean,
it just gets messier.
It's so messy down at the quantum level. It's this bizarre, crazy world. So for any quantum physicist to say that anything is impossible, I mean, that seems very unwise to me, given that we don't even understand the very basis of our science. And another thing that always gets me, again, just to go back to UFOs for one more second, people keep on saying,
Soup.
Yes, people. People keep saying, these things, they're breaking the laws of physics. These things that we're seeing in the sky. No, they aren't. It just means
physics we don't understand.
We don't know the laws of physics. We just don't want to admit that, baby. But these things aren't breaking any laws. They're just doing whatever they do. It simply means we do not yet know the laws of physics. We have not yet uncovered the bounds of the universe.
How embarrassing will we be when we do start talking to aliens publicly?
Yeah.
We have these laws of physics. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Until you guys come along, and then
No, that's exactly it. And this will be the same thing on the paranormal field. If we ever break through or get, one thing that Surviving Death didn't cover, and I don't know if there's going to be a second season, so maybe this will be an area for them to cover. But is because we do live shows. Besides having mediums on here, one of the aspects of why I set up the show and I worked hard. Speaking of, somebody tried calling in and hung up. Please try again. We'll take your call. One of the reasons I worked so hard to set up phone lines is I wanted this to be a live paranormal experiment, not just interviewing guests, but I want to do live experiments on the show. And one of the things we've gotten into is instrumental trance communication, spirit box, basically, and EVPs, and doing it live on the show. And I had my doubt, like, is this going to really work? And I remember when I was first testing it out, I had some weird stuff happen. I had my grandmother come through and say, "My beautiful boy," and I wasn't recording it. And it'll kill me to this day that I wasn't recording. I was just testing. I just said, "Grandma, I'm figuring out if this works. If you're here, I guess you could help me out, test it out." And right after I said that, it goes, "My beautiful boy," in her voice and everything. And then I stopped. It floored me, but it convinced me, got me hooked. And we've done a lot of these live shows, and people call in. I have no way of knowing who's going to call in. I'm not putting any pre-recorded things. It's a spirit box. It's random audio that somehow are being manipulated. And we've gotten messages. We've gotten audio that's not from the spirit box. That came right directly through the line.
Oh, cool.
An ominous voice giving a clear message to the person that was on the phone, telling them the exact phrase between them, peanut butter and jelly. Rhodey, that was one of the most amazing things. We've had some amazing stuff. Like I said, there's a whole aspect to this that wasn't covered in the show of people using electronic methods to communicate with, besides EVPs. I mean, like real, like the Edison idea of like on two-way communication.
Yeah, there's so much more to cover. You mentioned will there be a second season? I don't know that there will be specifically that, but there might be more stuff in the works along these lines. I think we can say that involving the paranormal and abilities maybe that people have. There's certainly more to cover, and some of the instrumental transcommunication stuff is really fascinating stuff. I mean, the universe is just a really boundlessly interesting place.
Exactly. And that's what's always flabbergasted me from a very early age is how scientists, like Ghostbusters, as you heard me playing that, were my heroes. They were scientists who cared. They wanted to make ghost traps. They wanted to prove it. You know what I'm saying? It was a movie, I know. But that's what I wanted scientists to be. It was like Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd and Egon, Harold Ramis. That's what I wanted scientists to be, but they had no interest.
And I mean, like that's what science is supposed to be. Like, unfortunately, science can become, and I think in some cases has become, just as dogmatic as some religions are. Science is supposed to be the method, right? And Dr. Ian Stevenson of the Division of Perceptual Studies at UVA, he famously said that science is too often confused. Science, the method, is too often confused with the body of knowledge that it has accumulated. The body of knowledge is ever shifting, as we know. I mean, just ask Galileo. Or Newton, or Einstein, right? At one time or another, each of these people thought they had figured out the quote unquote truth until we learned the actual truth somewhere down the line. So we're always at this new precipice, right? Of knowledge. I don't know what else I was saying.
So we got somebody else on the phone line. I want to get here before we go to our last commercial break. You're on the phone line. Who do we got?
My name's Pamela.
Hi, Pamela?
Pamela, yes.
Hi, well, welcome to the show. Thanks for calling in.
Yeah, I'm very interested in like the paranormal and stuff like that. So,
you got an experience to share tonight, or a question for our guest?
Yeah, I do. Because I'm sort of empathic. I've been told I've been empath. But when my mom, I don't do death. I have this thing about dying and stuff like that. I just don't want to have like anything to do with it. It makes me feel like I want to run.
I think you and a lot of people. I think that's more of the majority of people, honestly.
Oh, I would hope. But I told my mom I don't do funerals, Mom. She goes, "You better come to mine, or I'll haunt you." She was going to haunt me. Her little funny way of saying it. But anyway, she passed away at 66 years old. Well, a few weeks after she passed away, I was riding my bike on a bike path near a canal. So I got really tired, and I just sort of like pulled off, and I was going to just rest a bit. And I looked up in the sky, and my mom had passed away like 2-3 weeks before that. And I looked up at the sky. I was just looking, and you see the clouds how they sort of like float real slowly.
Yeah,
they're floating by real slowly. All of a sudden, there was this one set of clouds that was more dense, and it was staying put. And then I was thinking, wow, that's weird. And all of a sudden, it looked like my mom.
The clouds did?
So my mom was like in her 30s, so not like...
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that looks like my mom. And then the lips on the cloud mom, it like did this pucker thing. It looked like it threw a kiss at me.
Oh,
and I'm like, huh? Yeah, and I had this thing with my mom. She would kiss the phone. She lived in another state. She would kiss the phone. When I would say goodbye and everything, she always, "I love you," kiss the phone. I was like, oh, I just thought that was so sweet. And this thing kissed, like this cloud mom kissed, and I was with somebody else, and they had like sort of like laid back and was like snoring and sleeping, right? And I'm like, hey, and I was like back on, and I wanted them to see what I was seeing.
Yeah.
And they go, what? And as I pointed at the sky, and as I turned to look, my cloud mom was like all distorting. Her face was all distorted. She started floating off with the clouds that were right behind her that were moving anyway.
Yeah.
And I thought, I go, never mind. I just started crying. I know that was my mom. I know it was.
Like I said, you have an inner knowing.
They think I was like mourning so badly that I was delusional or something. But I'm like, no, I saw.
There's an inner knowing.
I just knew that it had to be her. She told me she was going to haunt me, and she did, more or less.
At least in a cloud. That's not too bad.
And then my daughter, she gets up. My mom was into ladybugs and collected all these different things. And my daughter and her were real close. And my daughter had a real hard time. And every time we turn around, there's a ladybug on the handle of her truck when she goes to get in her car. Or there's a ladybug that flies and just lands on the windshield. And then as she's driving, and it stays on there, don't even fly off. As she's driving, this ladybug will just stay there. And I mean, we don't even see ladybugs that often. Much less into. They always visit me, my daughter. Well, then all of a sudden, I had one. It was nighttime. I had one on my leg, and I felt something crawling on my leg. I had shorts on. So I reached down and like, what the, went to scratch it, and I felt something on my leg, and I picked it up, and it was a yellow ladybug. It wasn't a red one, but it was a yellow one. And I mean, in my car, and I live in Arizona, in Phoenix, where it's really, really hot.
Yeah.
So I don't ever see ladybugs here at all, ever.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if that's a thing for the altitudes or what, but yeah. So I think my mom came to me and saw me that, with that ladybug, because I never see ladybugs, and I've never seen one ever.
Trust
I didn't
your
even know
gut
there
on
was
it.
yellow ladybugs.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but I thought that maybe it was because I'm an empath. But I think that since we're energy beings, I believe we're energy beings, and I believe that the frequencies of the energies and stuff like that. I'm not sure. I just know certain things are the way they are, even though I've never learned them from anywhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just
It's an inner
feel
knowing.
it.
Like I said, when you have these experiences, there's something that just tells you this is meaningful. This means it. This is means what you
What
think.
about like looking at pictures and knowing things about people you've never met before, but you think you meet them? Like, because I do that too.
Me too.
I look at a picture and I'm like, I can see them do stuff in my mind's eye.
Yes.
I see them do something. I'm like, what are they?
Yes, I've had that
I know
experience.
these people. And they're going, well, they live in such and such. You've been there? No, but then you don't know them. I go, but I know them because I could tell them things about these people, and I tell them, and they says, well, you must have been there. I
It's
go, no,
called
I've never
psychometry,
been there.
really.
You know?
By holding that
Yeah.
picture, it's like
So-
psychometry. Like I said, I held it of a dead person, knew their first and last name, and all this information about them. I had never knew them at all. So yeah.
Yeah,
totally
because
believe it.
there was 4 people in the photo, and I could tell them about 3 people. I couldn't tell them about one, the brother of this guy. I can tell them about the brother. And he goes, what about my brother? And I kept thinking, I saw no pictures in my mind about the brother. And I said, I don't think I know him. He says, well, my brother's dead. So, see, to me, that means that he wasn't putting out that energy that he would have been if he was alive in that picture or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I couldn't see nothing in my mind. It's like little movies, and I couldn't see him doing nothing. But I just saw the sister and the mom and dad doing stuff. See? So it was weird, and I didn't know if I had this ability to do that.
I think
thought I really knew that.
lots of people do, and they don't
So-
realize it.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. That a lot of people had the ability, but I thought they were thinking I was nuts and crazy.
Well, Pamela, thank you for calling in. Did you have a question for Mike at all?
No, I was listening to what with him with the butterflies and stuff. and
Yeah,
it
that's
just
I
made
love
a lot
that
of
story.
sense.
Well, thank you
Yeah,
for calling
it
in,
made a lot of
Pamela.
sense. Thank you.
You have a great
Bye
night.
bye.
You know what I thought of when watching the documentary is one of the near-death survivors. We're about ready to come on a commercial break, so I'll leave people hanging on this. One of the near-death survivors, like a guy, I can't remember his name. He was like Hispanic. He had like the hat on. He's telling like the whole audience about his near-death, and he's seeing like all the colors. Remember? I can't remember which one he was and that what his name was.
Yeah, I can't remember it at the moment, but yeah.
But you remember when he says like, at one point, if he wanted to be a drop of rain on a leaf, he could. If he wanted, you've heard people like say that they're like this, like the one woman who famously they like put her in a death state to do a brain aneurysm surgery, whatever. That she was like on the shoulder of the physician, like she's really small.
Yeah,
I've had this experience. Here's more of the weirdness, where I see, and I've been told by mediums and other people that I'm seeing spirit. But I see these little balls of light that fly around people, and I'll see it fly into people at times. It's spontaneous. I can't make myself do it, but I see it. And I've seen them turn into faces, like flash and turn into a face. So I can believe maybe that is spirit. If they're that small, maybe they interact with animals. Maybe they can. I don't want to. It's hard for me. I don't want to say they possess an animal, but there's something that they're. The spirit can be just a tiny little dot that's able to float into an animal and do something miraculous.
Yeah, I mean, the whole idea of space and time. From a spiritual perspective, is a totally different thing, right? So size is not a significant issue. I don't think. I think we hear people, as you said, who have near-death experiences who claim that this is a world of thought, basically, where anything is possible. You can be a giant if you want to be a giant. You can be the tiny little thing.
Where dreams may come.
Yeah.
That's why I love. That's my. I have a list, and I want to do a video and put it on Paranormal Soup of my all-time favorite afterlife ghost movies. You know, and number one, I'll just give it away now. Number one is What Dreams May Come, because to me that really encapsulate a lot of what you get from these near-death experiences is in that movie.
I agree. Yeah, I remember watching that movie and being mesmerized. Yeah. I mean, the previous caller talked about her fear of dying, and as you said, I think that's a ubiquitous fear, right? Yeah. But if there's anything that brings me comfort, other than this direct evidence I've gotten from my dad, it's these near-death stories. I mean, they bring me so much comfort. So I would recommend for anyone who is dealing with anxiety surrounding death, that's a place that you might want to start.
And I think I've had that anxiety all my life, and I think that's why I'm so fascinated by it. And it does give me comfort. I will admit that. That's probably a big part of my fascination. Besides all the weird experiences I've had, is that I do have anxiety about death at times, and especially, I didn't really actually, not when I was a teenager. As a teenager, I did all kinds of stupid stuff I would never do now that I didn't have any fear of. When I had kids, once I had my first son, that anxiety became paramount, and I started doing this show.
That makes sense to me. Absolutely. Yeah. That makes complete psychological sense. Yeah.
Yep. All right, we got to go to our last commercial break. When we come back, we're going to continue this conversation, and the phone lines will be open. Call in. Tell us about. I love these stories. I love the callers we've had so far tonight telling us your personal experiences. I love hearing it. Please call in. This is the discussion. Open forum. We're all pieces of the puzzle, I always say, of what's going on in the afterlife. You have a piece yourself of your own experiences, and I want to hear it. All right, guys, we'll be right back after the short commercial break.
Intercepted transmission of unknown origin.
Transmission? Out here?
SOS.
Human.
Unknown.
Alien. Certificate X. Exclusive engagement at the Odeon Leicester Square. Now.
Any systematized transmission indicating a possible intelligent origin must be investigated. I don't want to hear it.
In space, no one can hear you scream.
If you are interested in discovering the truth about the paranormal and want to hear from leading researchers in the field, join Justin Brown on his 3 weekly shows named My Paranormal Soapbox, Necromancer Live Show, and the Supernatural Symposium, live on Facebook, YouTube, and InterfaceDeath.net.
This is an APAC studio presentation.
Hi, I'm Barry, owner-operator of Barry's Barometer Barn. Lately, I bet you've been lying awake at night asking yourself, how many barometers do I really need? Well, at Barry's Barometer Barn, we think you need more than one. Otherwise, we're gonna go out of business. Remember, at Barry's Barometer Barn, we don't know the meaning of high-pressure sales. Come on, folks, buy another barometer. I'm trying to put my kids through college, I've got a family to support, and a secret mistress who isn't cheap.
Visit Barry's Barometer Barn, 000 Storm Drive. Come on, folks, buy a barometer. I'm Barry's older brother, Larry, and every time one of you people walk past the store without coming in, Barry beats me.
This has been a presentation from Tim Morgan's APAC Studio. For more almost professional amateur comic studio content, visit the APAC YouTube channel. Search APAC 2002. That's APAC 2002 on YouTube.
When Alex Gardner is asleep, he has an extraordinary gift. The government wants it, the scientists want it, but to keep it may cost him his life. It might be better if Alex didn't sleep at all, but he cannot resist entering the dreamscape.
Can you? See Dreamscape in the West End and all over London now. Certificate 15. It takes an extraordinary adventurer to enter the Dreamscape.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from Talkstream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Join us every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time for Weird Wednesday, the live stream, with your hosts Jamie, the Living Dead Girl, and Rob, the Phantom, where we'll talk about all things paranormal, including zodiac, astrology, tarot card and oracle card readings, live ghost boxing and spirit communication, where we'll do Voices from Beyond, the Cold Case Files. So we hope you join us live on Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time. We hope to see you there. Bye-bye.
The night is alive. Join us and take a walk on the weird side when you tune in to The Kingdom of Nye, hosted by Heather Wade, the finest in late night talk. Listen live free weeknights starting at 9 p.m. Pacific time at thekingdomofnye.com, talkstreamlive.com, and the Paranormal Radio app. Wanna take a ride?
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
I've seen things you people wouldn't believe. Attack ships on fire off the shoulder of Orion. I watched sea beams glitter in the dark near the 10-house gate. All those moments will be lost in time, like tears in rain. Time to die.
You're listening to Paranormal Soup, bringing you the weird every Sunday night. Call into the show and join the discussion. The call-in lines are 219-230-4444 or 260-225-9419 or by Skype caller ID OOJBland00 or JBland Paranormal Soup. And now to your host, Jason Bland.
Tonight's guest, we've been talking with Mike Anthony. He's author of Love, Dad, How My Father Died, Then Told Me He Didn't. I've been reading this book. It's a beautiful book. It's, Mike doesn't hold back. He brings you into his personal experience of losing somebody he very much cared about as his father, and then these deeply personal experiences that have proved to him that his father's there on the other side. And he's also part of a Netflix series called Surviving Death, that you'll see a lot of what's entailed in this book. Some of that is in that show, and it's a beautiful show. I've watched it twice now. I love it. I highly recommend his book and that show. If you haven't seen either or read his book, I definitely recommend getting it. Phone lines are still open. Call in. I'd love to hear your guys' experiences. What made you a believer in the afterlife? I obviously think you're probably a believer in the afterlife if you've been watching this show. Maybe not. But what did make you a believer if you are? I'd love to hear your experiences, but let's go ahead and get back to our guest. All right. Welcome back to the show. We got half an hour left, Mike. And, one of the things, these experiences people have and all that, we talked a little bit about aliens, too. We've gotten to that. I call the show Paranormal Soup because I believe all these things are connected.
Yeah.
And back in the day, I used to listen to Art Bell. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He was a radio host. Anniversary of his death just recently came up on the 13th. And there was an infamous episode. When it was early on paranormal shows, he interviewed John Lear. And one interview, John Lear talks about aliens related to the afterlife. Like the moon is this big soul capacitor. And, this is reasons like souls are lost at sea. It was really interesting. I don't know if John Lear just was spitting it out that night. I actually called and asked John Lear on a radio show once what that was all about. I found out it was a conversation he had the night before Whitley Strieber that brought that all out. But that idea, like, do you go to the light if aliens are in control of it? As I said, it's a soup. Are these things connected?
Well, I think that's such a great analogy to call it a soup. And in my mind, like, they have to be connected, right? It's all, if you go from a deep enough or a high enough or a far away enough perspective, this all has to be contained within one story in some form, right? So this has now become sort of the focus of where I put my mental energy, interestingly enough, is the connection, the confluence, the place that the nexus of life after death and whatever in the world, aliens, UFOs, interdimensionals, whatever these things are.
Reptilian-eating
babies. How all of this comes together, right? Now, it's fascinating because Whitley is a good friend of Leslie Kane.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Awesome.
And I asked Leslie early on because I read Communion back when I was in high school. That was
me too.
And then I didn't sleep for weeks. Right. And then the Christopher Walken movie version of it. Oh my goodness. But Whitley, the first thing I asked Leslie, I'm like, Leslie, so is he is he totally sane? And Leslie told me that he is not only is he sane, he's very intelligent. He's very bright. And since then, I mean, I agree with her. He absolutely is sane and intelligent, and he is having an experience that few of us have. And he has faced it with such courage now that he has been able to move beyond the terror, which of course was there at first, as anyone would feel, waking up to see these freaking things, big black-eyed, praying mantis-looking things at your bed. I mean, of course, that would terrify anybody. And
take it aboard a ship and experiment it on.
Having God knows what done to you.
Right.
Terrifying. And some fear is still present for him because, he's having experiences to this day. But he's been able to move through the fear now, and he has actually been in communion, what he calls communion now, with these what he calls visitors, for lack of a more descriptive word, because he doesn't know what they are. You know what I mean? He he's not going to say that they are extraterrestrials, meaning from another planet in this universe. They could be, but they could also be, from another dimension. Dimension is a word we throw around a lot. It's hard to actually.
I throw it around on the show all the time.
It's hard to grasp exactly what that means in the extra dimension because the human brain just isn't set up to grasp that. But anyway, so Whitley now is communicating with them, and he just wrote a fantastic book called A New World. A New World. I recommend it to everyone who's interested in this topic. For me, it's the best book I've ever read on the visitors. And he's communicating with them now. He has now fascinating theories about what they are and what they're doing here. But what is very interesting is his wife, Anne, after Whitley wrote Communion, right? He got hundreds of thousands. I think he got over 200,000 letters from experiencers, because before Whitley burst onto the scene with Communion, I mean, there was just no outlet for people who might be having an experience like this that they couldn't explain. These poor people, and I now have friends in my life currently going through this, having an experience that totally shatters their sense of reality, and then they had to bear it alone because there was no one they could talk to about it. I cannot imagine the loneliness of what that experience was to be like. So indicative of that loneliness is the fact that he got over 200,000 letters sent to him telling him what happened to them. And Anne's wife went through, Whitley's wife, Anne, went through every single one of these letters, right? And she started to notice the themes and the similarities, things that were often part of the experience. As I'm sure your listeners know, these experiences can be incredibly varied, just as a near-death experience can be. You know, it's not like there's any particular template. They can be very, very different. But Anne noticed that there were some recurring themes. And one day she walked out of her office and she said to Whitley, "I think this has something to do with what we call death."
Yes.
The alien abduction experience. She said that because so many people in these letters were writing about their deceased loved ones somehow being a part of the experience.
Yes.
Why in the world would that be? So now Whitley, and this is something he publicly talks about, but Anne passed away, and now Whitley, when he meditates nightly, twice a day, and when he does the one that he does it at like 3:00 in the morning, Anne often shows up with the visitors. So to him, in some way, it's as though these things, which can be very physical in nature, obviously, at the same time that you can have these psychic aspects of the experience, like your consciousness being brought out through the wall, for instance, onto a ship or whatever the thing actually is. But for some reason, he feels like these things can exist in the same realm that wherever my dad is now, you know? So that's why I'm trying to figure out now, like, how does all of this connect?
For a friend of mine that's going to be on next week is Terry Lovelace. He wrote a book called Incident at Devil's Den. And that's all about his alien abductions experiences. His book, I read Communion, and then it frightened me and all that, but his book, Incident at Devil's Den, woke me to an incident I had on a camping trip similar to his, where I might have been taken at one time with a friend who's regularly. So I've this a whole subject, and I know Terry's talked to Whitley. They've become friends too. I know all these people that know Whitley, but I have him on Facebook, and he totally ignored my request to come on the show.
Oh, no.
Yeah. I'm like, come on. You like my dream interview? One of my favorite books is Majestic, besides Communion. But he wrote a book called Majestic, fictional book, by the way. But it's like one of my top favorites. Dream interview. But, Terry is getting along the lines that I know we've been talking about the idea of what is the connection between the afterlife and ET, aliens. What I've always said, you've heard Michio Kaku and other science physicists talk about like type 1 civilization, type 2, type 3. And it's always on this technological level. They talk about where they're at. But if your civilization's advanced technology-wise, to make it that far, I think they've had to evolve spiritually wise.
I think you've got to.
Like
if you
Jedi.
Otherwise, you blow yourselves up. Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
There's got to be they've expanded into that realm. Like Q, I'm a Star Trek fan too, besides Star Wars. Q ultimately becomes like these godlike beings. They become that type of civilization. You have to spiritually evolve.
Yeah. So, are you familiar with Dolores Cannon's work? By any chance? A little bit. So she uses hypnosis, regressive hypnosis, and she has it's a fascinating series of books. There are series of 3 books, and the ultimate conclusion she comes to is that these things are manipulating our bodies, and that's what all of the testing seems to be about. Obviously people have all of these experiences where their semen is taken or their ovum and DNA and all of that. Somehow manipulating our bodies to adjust how they interact with our soul, whatever our soul actually turns out to be. According to Dolores's work, the soul is an actual entity,
a malleable thing that really exists that can be put into something else at some time.
Yeah, shoved into a vessel that this human body would be, and somehow they're manipulating the bodies to
look at Avatar. Look at Avatar, the movie.
Yeah.
I mean, what do they do? I mean, it's not that he's died, but they take a soldier and they put him in this machine. It puts him in this body of an alien.
Yeah.
And he's able to walk around and work in that environment. We watch Star Trek. I'm a big, like I said, Star Trek fan. You always see him landing on worlds, and they're perfectly fine, right? Well, remember War of the Worlds? The aliens land here and get the cold and die? That's more like it than it is on Star Trek. There's a lot of things that could kill you physically. Your environments are going to be different everywhere. What beautiful way to colonize other planets if you could engineer the bodies you need for that planet and just take the souls of your civilization and put them in those bodies to live in this new civilization.
Yeah, it's very complicated and convoluted, and trying to figure this out through a human brain is very difficult. One of the things that
human dogma,
one of the things near-death experiencers often say, you hear this a lot, is that when they're out of body, they have the sudden download of information, and they suddenly understand everything, right? Like everything is crystal clear.
But haven't you had a dream like that, though, too? I've had some very vivid dreams. I know everything. Oh, my God, what? I wake up, I'm like, it's gone.
Oh, my God, I've had that exact. I'm like grasping for the thing.
Yes.
And they say this all the time. This happens a lot where they feel like everything is crystal clear. And then as soon as they're back in their body, it's like the human brain is just simply not set up to be able to grasp some of these concepts. So they lose them as soon as they're back in their body. And it's entirely possible that our relationship to whatever these things are, and there might be multiple things, of course, obviously, right? There might be actual extraterrestrial in the sense that they are visitors that have somehow found a way to traverse tremendous distances that our human brains can't even fathom. We could be being visited by some of those things. There could be also interdimensionals. It could be
future versions of us from parallel universe.
Time could be a part of this. Absolutely. Yep. It could be and it could. Whitley tends to believe, I think, that there are cases of sort of all of these things kind of going on at once. So it's a very complicated, obviously, question that we might not. It's possible we're not meant to be thinking too much about it because it can just explode your brain.
Well, that might be the reason why there hasn't been a disclosure and never will be, is the whole story is so crazy, so complicated. There's no way to divulge it to society in one bite, in one... Aliens are real, but there's so much more to that. So much more to that.
Can you imagine telling a culture that is transfixed by the Kardashians or whatever we watch on television, also giving this sort of information to it's hard to imagine how you would do that because, like you said, it's so complicated. We do not understand it all, obviously. Yeah, there are times when I want to just shut this off. You know what I mean? And go back to the good old days when all I cared about was going to the movies with my girlfriend, and that was that. Because thinking about all of this stuff, it can become taxing. To
make your brain hurt.
Totally make your brain hurt. One more thing to say about Whitley, though. People obviously question whether or not. The objective reality of his experiences. There's a guy named Jeffrey Kripal, I don't know if are you familiar with him at all?
Name sounds familiar.
He's a scholar. I think he primarily teaches comparative religion at Rice University. I think another brilliant guy.
Yeah.
He met Whitley, and they have become friends. And they wrote a book together called The Supernatural. It's called.
Okay, that's why it's familiar. Yeah, I know the book. Okay, yeah.
Now, Jeffrey and Whitley were at a convention together, I think 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, and they were roommates together. And Jeffrey Kripal says that it only be Whitley Strieber's roommate if you are ready to have a pretty crazy night. Because
I'd sign up for any minute. I would.
Jeffrey writes the foreword to Whitley's new book, and he mentions this, although he will not go into exactly what it is. But he says that at about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, now Whitley, the following day, did not know that Jeffrey had experienced any of this, but Whitley had a visitation that night. Jeffrey woke up. Now, Jeffrey is a mainstream scholar, right?
Right.
Doesn't know. And UFOs had never been his thing. The aliens. This is not a part of his life. He's like a mainstream religious scholar. He woke up in the middle of the night and saw something that Jeffrey says split his psyche in two. Basically, that it was so difficult to grasp that he basically became two separate points of consciousness, and one point of his consciousness basically was watching everything unfold from outside of his body while he was at the same time still inside of his body. So very hard to explain, but he saw something happen. Like, no doubt about it, this something physical happened that Jeffrey witnessed. So for anyone who's questioning the objective reality to what Whitley has experienced, because there's clearly a psychic component to a lot of these things, right?
Exactly.
Clearly a psychic component a lot of times, as Jacques Vallée writes about a lot. But in this case, someone else in the room also experienced something that was so bizarre, so outside of his frame of reference, that in his words, it split his psyche in two. So...
yeah, I mean, that might have been part of his. I mean, it sounds like that's part of his experience of what was happening that night in that room. Is that there's a lot of references. Sometimes I hear from abductees that they wonder if sometimes, they do believe they have physical marks, Terry Lovelace had micro implants, X-rays you could see in his leg,
Yes, yeah.
I mean, there's physicality of this for sure. But sometimes these abductees wonder, sometimes they take them, they're not physically taking them. They're just taking their soul out of the body.
Yeah. I've heard that a lot. And this friend, this one particular friend of mine who is going through this. Now, this guy is like a really smart dude, smart guy. But when he was early on, he was living in New York. He was an actor and he was really successful. Things were like going great. And then this freaking thing crashed into his life and he was taken. And then, of course, he remembered that he'd been being taken since he was a young kid. And it totally changed the course of his life, because how could it not? Like, in 1 minute, you're living in one movie where everything's normal and happy and great. And then suddenly you're living in your very own movie that no one else is experiencing, as far as you know. And he couldn't even tell his parents about it, right? He couldn't tell his closest friends. He ended up finding John Mack, luckily, the Harvard psychiatrist. And but for him, obviously, so now this is this ongoing thing. And his brother recently passed, and now I think he feels like his brother is somehow now involved in these visitations from the other side.
I hear this all the time. I've had a number of abductees on the show, and some of them include this stuff in their books, some of them don't, because they feel like it's already a stretch enough to tell people about aliens. It's hard enough stretch to tell them that there's a paranormal ghost side to this.
Exactly. Yes,
but this is why I do a show. We got to talk about these things. We got to compare notes. We got to talk. We got to be open and honest about the actual experience. And I know some things are really hard. I have my own, what I call shadow person hat man experience that changed my life when I was 17, 18. And there's parts of that I don't think I'll ever talk about. I've talked about the whole experience. I wrote it out, but there's deep personal things I don't ever want to talk about. I get that with people. There's some things that just these aliens or entities or ghosts, sometimes to get to so personal, there's never going to talk about it.
So personal, and
we do need to be
bizarre.
as open and honest as we can be, without hurting ourselves, without giving up what we don't want to talk about. But we need to talk about it as best we can to compare notes.
And that's the big change that I feel like is starting to happen because of these videos. Again, like we talked about before, there's obviously this big disparity between what the government or whoever actually knows and what they're releasing. But what has been released has started to open up the conversation more widely in the general public, I think. Finally, you can talk about UFOs, and it's being talked about on mainstream media without people immediately turning you off and saying, "Oh, that's obviously a crazy person." So I do feel the door starting to open up.
Yeah, and let's hope there's nothing that goes and slams it shut. All it takes is one fraudster within all this disclosure thing, one person to screw it up, and then everybody's like, "Oh, see, it's all fake."
Yeah,
That's what I hate about that.
I'm going to be optimistic about that and feel like that's not going to happen. That's my hope here.
I think the cat's out of the bag. It's a snowball.
Yeah.
It's starting to roll downhill and gather steam.
And again, I think more is to come. Like better videographic, better photographic evidence. I think more is on the way. So it's a fascinating time to be alive. If you had told my 14-year-old phenomenology club self that one day I'd be sitting here, talking to Leslie Kane, talking about Whitley Strieber, like having these people be actual people in my life that I'm talking about, I would not have believed it. So it's a fascinating time to be here.
I mean, that's why I'm privileged to do the show. I mean, I've had Bruce Maccabee on the show, Dr. Barry Taff. I've got to meet so many amazing people in this field. Whitley, come on, Whitley. You're like my dream interview, Whitley. Hear me, Whitley. There's people, but that's why I love doing this show. I don't make any money doing this show. I make enough money to barely pay the bills to run the show.
Yeah.
Patreon people, you can help me out, $2 a month. Shameless plug. But I do it because I love this conversation. Me and you are having. I'm meeting you for the first time, and that's what I don't do pre-scripted questions. Here's my sheet. I got your name, title of the book, and next week's guest.
Yeah.
I mean, that's hard enough for me to remember. I want these conversations, and I want it with my chat room. I'm always so proud of my chat room and everybody on YouTube and Facebook and Twitch now. The way that they openly talk and feel like they're comfortable here to talk about it, because that's what we need. We need to have these conversations.
Absolutely.
The dogma needs to stop. The judgment needs to stop. The thinking we know the laws of physics needs to stop because we don't know diddly crap. Obviously, by the UFO video we showed just a little while, on the World Wide Web of Weird, we don't know crap about physics. Obviously,
we clearly have a lot left to learn. Yes, clearly.
And I love that they keep calling it a pyramid UFO. I feel like there's something nefarious about that because, like, there's the TR-3B triangle UFO triangle. Like my friend Terry Lovelace, the horrible experience he had in Devil's Den was a triangle UFO. He said it was like 5 stories in length and height. This thing was huge, and that's what I think of when I see that thing. I'm like, it's not a period. It's a triangle. UFO.
Yeah.
It's a TR-3B that they've talked about for years. Maybe I think it's alien. I don't think our government actually has it. We might have something that is a TR-3B, but it's like a small miniature model of that. Like stuff we stole from them. Maybe. Right. Or given.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And that's what complicates the story even further is that now I think there are definitely things that we've been able to, in some cases, reverse engineer a bit. I mean, that confuses me a little bit because it's sort of like handing an iPhone to an ant and saying, here, ant, what can you do with that? And
remember Bob Lazar's stories is like they were like literally like taking some of these apart and they're like, I don't know what that does.
Might be a bad idea.
Yeah, they blew up on one of them in one of the stories.
Yeah, if I were, I'd be like, okay, Bob, I'm going to be out here. Good luck opening up that little hatch. I mean, that seems crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
To me.
When I was a kid, one of my favorite movies, I mean, I used to draw the ship from it and everything. Like I was obsessed with this movie. And I look back at it now and I go, because it incorporates the alien aspect a little bit, and it incorporates the afterlife aspect in such subtle ways, is Stanley Kubrick's Space Odyssey 2001.
Oh yeah,
I was obsessed with that when I was a kid because what happens, with Dave. Hold on a second,
I'm sorry, Dave.
Right?
I'm afraid I can't do that.
He becomes dies, whatever, out in space, but then he comes back. He goes in the 2010 Space Odyssey in the books. I actually read the 3rd book too, and he's still around. Like whatever the alien thing they're communicating with is like godlike. We look at he's a spirit, be able to like travel and see his wife in the nursing home and all that. I thought Stanley Kubrick really like was catching upon the soup there, the connection between aliens and the afterlife in a subtle way.
And people say, a lot of people on the inside, so to speak, have said that, Hollywood is used in that way to sort of plant these seeds in our subconscious and try to get us up to speed here so that it's not such an enormous shock.
Right. Well, what did I say? The story's so complicated, they can't just give it to us in one big news press conference of any kind.
No.
But if they did, we'd be like, mind's blown, But if they can slowly, like, get our look, like I said, like if this UFO disclosure is happening now, happened 20 years ago, people's minds would be blown. It would be all crazy. But right now, people are like, oh, wow, that's interesting. Saying that they've X-Files, all these things. Steven Spielberg, like all these things have conditioned us, and then it's a control factor, I believe.
But if you think about
conditioned to start getting little pieces of it now.
If you think about it, though, information, technology, whatever, has been withheld from us, forever. From times of the Bible, the pyramids, how were they built? I mean, it just goes forever.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you get the whole ancient aliens thing on it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
information
all
always never been disclosed throughout.
Yeah, I mean, we, Bob Lazar, for instance, indicated that it was someone intimated to him that one of the ships one of the craft, whatever they are, was found in an archaeological dig and is thousands of years old.
Exactly.
So, I mean, like tens of thousands of years old. So if that turns out to be the case, if some of the stuff going on in Antarctica turns out to be real, obviously that totally upends the idea that human beings are the first intelligent life on this planet. I mean, some of this stuff, I do wonder what it would do to society.
Maybe those cavemen that were drawing spaceships on the cave walls, maybe they just had a hell of an imagination back then.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
We tell our kids, I have a 9-year-old and a 5-year-old, and their grandmother wants them to go to church, and they ask me, well, Dad, do you believe in? I go to the Church of Ancient Aliens.
Yeah.
I actually do believe in a higher power and an afterlife and all that, but when it comes to the Bible and all that, I think it's aliens. A lot of it. I'm sorry. Maybe different opinions. I get it. But Mike, it's been a true pleasure to have you on this show. I want to definitely have you back on again in your future projects. Let me know because I'd love to have you back on to talk about it.
I've had such a great time. I really appreciate it. And thank you for doing what you're doing. I'm going to become you've made a listener out of me now. And I think it's just real important work. You're one of the guys out there on the front lines with the pick hammer, knocking this wall down. So good on you.
5 years doing this now, one subscriber at a time. One more tonight.
You got absolutely.
Well, thank you guys. That's it for the show. Like I said, returning guest and friend Terry Lovelace next week. We're going to talk about his next book. You talk about Whitley Strieber getting all those emails. When after Terry wrote his book, Incident at Devil's Den, he got thousands of emails from people. Same deal. Like, I've had this experience in his newest book, Incident Devil's Den. Now I forgot the end title of that. His newest book, second of it, is all about these emails and these stories these people have shared with him. They gave him permission to talk about it. And we're going to talk about that and much more with Terry Lovelace, Incident at Devil's Den, next Sunday. Check out Mike Anthony's book, Love Dad, How My Father Died Then Told Me He Didn't. You can find that on Amazon, I'm sure, everywhere, Mike.
Yes, yep. And MikeAnthony.com, yep.
And MikeAnthony.com. Find it there. And definitely go watch on, if you have Netflix, Surviving Death. Excellent series. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you to everybody who shares out the show. And thank you to our patrons who do help pay the bills. $2 a month. Look us up, Paranormal Soup, Jason Bland on Patreon. $2 a month does help pay the bills. All right, guys, have a great night. See you next Sunday.